Hello, hackers. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Build and Deploy a Full Stack Web App with AWS. This is going to be a good one. I'm a little bit rusty. I've not done one of these since way back in April, but this is AWS focused, and in keeping with the branding, we've got a lovely little AWS cloud. Can you see that? Isn't that sweet? If you can hear me, give me a quick hello in the chat just to make sure things are going. How are you, Rusty? You work for AWS, says Jack. Well, Jack, you know, that's just how it is. Thank you so much for joining me. We're going to be building a full stack web app. I'm going to be walking you through one of the local host sessions. Now, something to bear in mind, my internet at home, oh God, I could go on about it forever. Basically, we don't have fiber to the building I live in. So instead, we have 5G, right? And so I have a router with a SIM card in, which connects to the 5G I have here in central London. Now, being 5G, when it works, it's super fast, 500 meg down, no problem. But also being 5G, it's still mobile data, which means sometimes it's a little bit flaky. So if I do break up, I apologize. If you're seriously not hearing what I'm saying, just post in the chat and I will glance over and, I don't know, glare angrily at the router and tell it to sort itself out. How are we doing here? Questions. Oh, now I know that something that was very popular last time I did these live streams was this thing called Blahage, right? I was never super like mega Blahage fan until one day, completely out of the blue, you know what turned up in the post at my house? A Blahage. This was sent to me, as far as I know, by Jack and Aaron of MLH. Now, Blahage in my house was very cuddly, and so I have in my flat like an L-shaped sofa. I like to sit in the corner. Blahage has been my friend there. Blahage turned into one of the cushions there, and Blahage is now actually like really flat and deflated. It's very sad. That's my Blahage. Cool. Should we do some technical stuff? I think we should. What is the banners I need to do? Well, first I've got to take off the kicking off banner, and then I need to add the... Where's it even gone? Someone removed my banner. Oh, here it is. Check in at hackpack/hackwithrobbie. If you go to hackpack/hackwithrobbie, it's going to take you to a page that looks a little bit like this. It's a beautiful checking page. And can we just take a moment to appreciate the absolutely fantastic branding for MLH in it? Like, this is a serious step up. I love it. It's so... Oh, it just pops with energy and color and fantasticness. You're going to head to this link. Go ahead, click on register and check in. I'm going to check into the event. And when you check in, if you scroll down, you get access to slides and the code for the session we're going to go through. It's really important. And I'm going to leave that URL just going across the bottom. So if you go there and you check in, you'll see the slides at the bottom of that page. I guess that means I should probably switch over to my slides. I've got about 5 different things open to manage my multiple screen sharing here. Let's do that. Got some slides open. Man, these comments are coming in fast. How are we doing? Video quality increased. Good. Like I said, I'm using 5G. I'm connected via Ethernet to my 5G router. It's flaky. It's like using personal hotspot all the time, forever. Cool. Let's do some AWS stuff. So I've got my slides open. That means I have to tell you that, hello, my name is Robbie. I'm here to lead this session and help you learn something new today. I graduated from Durham University here in the UK with a BSc in computer science and maths. And you'll see the S there is highlighted because maths is the correct way, the shortened version of mathematics. None of this math stuff. It's maths. That's just very English. That's how it is. Major League Hacking. It's our mission to empower hackers. MLH events are meant to bring hackers together so they can learn, build, and share. And INIT, I guess, is how things are these days. So thank you for joining us. This is actually a localhost session. So through localhost, MLH is rethinking technology education to reflect how hackers like you actually learn and also how fast the industry moves. I don't know about you, but at my computer science degree, we were still learning XML. We were doing PHP, which is really popular about 15 years ago, but these days it's a little bit outdated. Now, we already did a check-in. We're going to do another check-in, and this other check-in is going to give you some more stuff, more slides, more learning resources, good stuff like that. It's mlhlocal.host/check-in. As I said, you can get these slides if you go to the banner going across the bottom of the screen, just down Down there a bit, it says check-in/hackpack/hack with Robbie. Go there, check in at the bottom, and then you will have these slides. Using those slides, you can then find the other check-in link and check in there as well. Eve has a fantastic question. Will you go through downloading and setting up everything? The answer to this is yes and no. Some stuff I just happen to have already installed, for example, VS Code. It's a bit of a pain for me to go and uninstall that just for the point of reinstalling it. But I will walk through how to download and install everything, including Python. MySQL as well. Yeah, we'll be installing that. Cool. Table of contents. Welcome to MLH localhost. We have just done that. Now let's jump into setting up our dev environment. Following on nicely from that question you had there. Wow, there's 174 of you watching. Clearly, I said something that made that person leave. Absolutely love seeing people here. And again, if you missed it at the beginning, look at this. I got a little AWS cloud thing. How cool is that? So today we're going to build a full stack web app with Flask. Flask is a Python web framework. It's very common. And it's quite a good way of, quite an accessible way of getting into web development, shall we say. And we'll also look at how to configure a Mariadb database. Mariadb is a fork of MySQL. And then we'll look at deploying apps to AWS Elastic Beanstalk. What a wacky name. Using the AWS EB CLI, which is the world's longest acronym. It stands for Amazon Web Services Elastic Beanstalk Command Line Interface. Whew! I'm out of energy already just from going through that. So let's talk a bit about a web application. So you've got websites and web apps. And a website is the kind of more traditional static site, and it just displays information to you. This might be Wikipedia, great example of a website. You go on it, just shows you some static content. But a web application is dynamic. So the content of the web page changes based on what the user clicks or types or how they interact with the page. In theory, you know, most websites are web apps these days. If you go to the Google homepage, I don't know who actually does that, but if you go to the Google homepage and you type in and you type something in, right, that's a web app as opposed to a website. If you're on Facebook or Reddit, that's a web app because it's all very dynamic. You're on Amazon and you're buying something, making a purchase online. That's dynamic web behavior. It's a web application as opposed to just a web site. Thank you to the heroes who are posting links in the chat for me. Very, very much appreciate it. Now let's talk a bit about what full stack means. So a full stack application is one that includes both a front end and a back end. Now the front end is the user interface. It's what you actually see on your screen, what the user's browser will render. And then the back end is the behind the scenes magic, so we say. So all the stuff that goes into working out what should be shown on the front end. So if you're on Facebook, the front end is like the actual feed that you see scrolling through posts. And the back end is all the databases and the logic that works out which posts to show you. You know, if you're applying for jobs or internships, probably not internships, but for jobs, you might see postings for front-end engineers, back-end engineers, full-stack engineers. So full-stack is one that's both front and back. So you're a bit of a jack of all trades if you're full-stack. All that kind of good stuff. AWS is a collection of cloud computing services. It is, in fact, the largest cloud computing provider. AWS powers something like 40% of the entire internet. It's crazy, crazy numbers. And so these, when we say the cloud, we're talking about rather than storing data on your physical device, like on your own computer, it's stored in the cloud somewhere on someone else's server. And the point is, it's a layer of abstraction such that you don't really need to think about those servers or where they're hosted or anything like that. You know, more than 1 million businesses use AWS. Twitch is hosted on AWS. NASA, Netflix, Amazon.com, of course, I guess unsurprisingly, is hosted on AWS. And so who uses AWS? Generally people who are kind of developer operations or DevOps or systems administrators. When we say DevOps, it can also be something like site reliability or production engineering. And people, you know, developers as well, trust AWS because it's secure, it's reliable, and crucially, it works at scale. And when we say scale, we can talk about millions or even billions of users and requests. The nice example I always like to think about is, let's say you're a retail company, a little bit like Amazon.com. you probably get more purchases and more traffic to your website in December, right? And that's when Christmas is and the holidays. People do more shopping in December than, say, February. So if you would look at a graph, you get a bit of a spike in December. Now, if you're a company that hosts the website or the web app yourself with your own servers, you need to have enough servers to kind of host that website and meet that demand, even at peak times. So you'll have moments when you're not all those servers are being used, but you still have to buy those servers and you still have to maintain them and all this kind of stuff. So that's a bit of a pain. Instead, we say AWS is scalable because you can increase capacity and you only pay for what you use. So if your web app is particularly in high demand in December, you can very easily just scale up your application, and then you just pay for like the extra usage there rather than having to pay throughout like the whole year or forever. So we're going to build a web app and host it with Amazon Web Services. And when we host it, that means other people will, of course, be able to access it online. I'm actually going to build and deploy a seafood finder app. So in the app, you can search for seafood places in your city using the Yelp API. Yelp is some kind of restaurant place stuff review service, all that good stuff. Let's see what questions are coming through here. Plenty of questions. Are we deploying a Flask app on AWS? Basically, yes, we will get to that. We'll be deploying it with Elastic Beanstalk. The front end is actually a very good question. A lot of the front end code is provided for you. I want to say it's an Angular app, but it might actually just be simple, like vanilla JavaScript. Really can't remember. Who uses AWS? Robbie for sure. Just in case you didn't see it. Yes, I use AWS. What is DevOps? I mean, we could be here all day. DevOps refers to, rather than like actually writing the software itself, it's about the deployment and scalability of that software. So, for example, something I'm doing at the minute with my day-to-day job is I'm migrating an application to the cloud, a web app. But I don't really care what the application does. I don't really care what the functionality is when I click on some drop-down. All I'm focused on is how do I take some app, some application, and deploy it. So I'm focused on that deployment. That's kind of your DevOps area. That's kind of the briefest summary I can give. What other questions have we got here? Who doesn't use AWS currently? Blahaj Gang for sure. Well, the good news is AWS has a free tier for 12 months. So if you want to host stuff for free for 12 months, you absolutely can. I don't know anything about programming. What should I do? You should attend this workshop, this live stream, and listen in, because even if some of it goes over your head, that's totally fine. The best way to learn is just by attending this stuff, listening to people talk about it, asking questions, and also trying to follow along as well. So you can grab the slides. If you head to the link at the bottom of the screen, hackpack/hackwithrobbie, go to get the slides, and then you will be able to follow along at your own pace. Oh, God, these questions are getting harder. What's the difference between Sdlc and DevOps? I learned a trick once at school. I think I was year 9, year 10, so that's like 13, 14, 15 years old. And I had a teacher who was leaving, and she told us the secret. The secret is, when you ask a teacher something and they say, that's a really good question, you should find out the answer for homework. They're saying that because they don't know the answer. That is their get out of jail free clause, is they tell you to go and Google the answer for homework. That's what I'm going to say here. You should go and Google the difference between Sdlc and DevOps. What else have we got going through here? Is there a running joke with Blahaj Gang? Honestly, it goes over my head. I don't know what it is. There's something. I'm sure plenty of people in the chat who are Blahaj Gang enthusiasts will happily talk about it at length in the chat, but I'm going to focus on AWS stuff because we're already 14 minutes into this live stream, which is crazy. We're only on slide 13 of 127. Boom. Let's keep going. What's the next slide? Setting up our dev environment. Done. Oh, no, that's what we're doing now, apparently. Okay, so before we jump into the project, we've got to download and set up the tools. I know there was a question about this earlier in the chat. So tooling can be a bit of a bane of your existence if you're trying to install Python and Node.js and all these different versions, and pip 3 and pip 2, and like, what's Python 2 and Python 3, Python 3.8? Bit of chaos. We'll touch on it quickly and try and just talk through how to install it. And then we'll just take it from there. Like I say, you can get the slides, follow through at your own pace as well. Now, in this workshop, we'll be creating and working in a development environment, like I was saying. So that's the environment that's on your computer. So rather than kind of writing code straight into production, which is what someone else can access, then we'll just be doing it for development, just for messing around and testing, that kind of stuff. So we'll be creating a local database. So you can write your code without messing up the real data. So the development environment is sometimes also called your local environment. And keeping things in development is useful for testing and debugging before we launch the app into production. So you'd always write your code for a development environment, test it, fix bugs, test it, fix more bugs, test it, fix more bugs. And then once it's kind of tested and ready, then you would go and put it into production, which is when it's like ready for the world to consume, which is probably what this slide says. So every time we talk about making our project live, we talk about the production environments. This is where users can access the final app for real. So when you're in production, any bugs or errors or stuff like that can be found by a user. And that's why we try and fix bugs in development first before they actually get into production. Questions. Python for when? It's a great question, and you should find out the answer for homework. Are we going to give us some time to download the dev tools? Yes and no. I will be going through at a set speed. If you're fast enough, you can download in that time. If not, that's totally fine as well. The slides are available. Can we use PyCharm? You can use PyCharm. We're not actually going to do a huge amount of coding in this session. It's a bit more of a DevOps focus. So rather than building the application, we're focusing more on deploying it. But if you want to use PyCharm, absolutely go for it. Okay, next question. Development lifecycle. This is a good one. I like this slide. So the development lifecycle includes another step, a staging environment, which is more realistic. More realistic testing happens here. So it's designed to be as similar to the production environment as it can be. So if we're doing, just for this workshop, we'll have a local development environment and then a production environment. Local development is where I'm running, MySQL locally on my computer. Flask and Python is running in development mode, all this kind of stuff. Production is when we're deploying with Elastic Beanstalk and it's actually going live to the world. Now, staging would be an intermediary step that's kind of a mirror of production, as close as you can get it. So while I'm doing local development, I'm doing that on my computer. Production is with Elastic Beanstalk. With staging, I might have another Elastic Beanstalk environment, i.e. one that's basically as close as I can get to the actual production environment to help me catch more specific bugs there. Basically, that's what I just said. We won't be creating a staging environment for this workshop, but we will be pushing our code straight from development to production. And indeed, more complex life cycles exist. For my day job, I'm currently working on an environment where we've got a development environment, a test environment, a QA environment. QA is quality assurance. A pre-prod environment, which is basically staging, and then a prod, a production environment. So you got 5 different stages. It's just a case of the bigger the stuff you're working on, the more stages there are to the life cycle. Now, in terms of tools, I know there's been a good few questions about this. We've talked about this a lot. We'll be using Visual Studio Code. This is a very common and pretty cool code editor, text editor. It's got a built-in terminal as well. So if you don't like using a separate command line, you can use it all in VS Code. And then there's terminal as well. So like the more native terminal on your computer is where you run commands for your computers to execute. Python is a very popular programming language. Beginners and university students and college students love it because it's quite an accessible one to get started with. And of course, it's just very, very popular. And then pip it's like a package manager. So it allows us to install code, modules, libraries, dependencies that our Python application needs. And we've also got Mariadb, so that's the database we'll be using. We can run that on our local computers for our development environment. And then, of course, we've also got an AWS account, which is reliable, scalable, and inexpensive cloud computing service. More questions coming through. A couple of good questions here. Is A/B testing staging? So a staging environment is one that's basically the same as production, but it's still not accessible to the world. It's not accessible to the public. It's only internal. So that if something messes up in staging, it's not accessible to the whole world. Now, A/B testing usually refers to, let's say you've got an email marketing campaign, right? I know, but they exist. You've got an email marketing campaign, and you don't know whether the email with the subject, your latest offers versus get 20% off, right? If you've got those two different subjects, you might do A/B testing. So if you've got 100,000 users, you could send 50,000 of them an email with the first subject, and then the other 50,000 an email with the second subject. And then you can see which of those subjects performs better by looking at metrics like what percentage of people open the email, what percentage of people click on the link in that email, all this kind of stuff. So A/B testing is about showing slightly different features and functionality to different users to determine which one works better. What is an EBS volume? EBS is Elastic Block Store. I think I don't want to go into the details of it too much because we'll be here a while. It's basically some kind of file storage mechanism. Oh, we've already got a fantastic answer. Here we go. Storage volume for AWS, exactly EC2. Right, let's keep moving forward here because with 212 of you watching live, we'll be here all day if I answer every single question. Fortunately, there's some very generous and knowledgeable people in the chat who are also answering questions, which is awesome to see. And the best way to learn is actually to try teaching someone else. Right, installing Visual Studio Code. I already have Visual Studio Code or VS Code installed on my computer, but I will show you how to download it. It's pretty simple. So in order to edit, write, and deploy the code for this workshop, we need a code editor. No one wants to use like Notepad or Microsoft Word or anything like that. You need a dedicated tool, and VS Code is the best one. So it's a pretty lightweight but very powerful and also very extensible code editor, which runs on your computer. Now, to install VS Code, I like to head to this URL, mlhlocal.host/VS Code-download. Now, I am going to do some magic screen sharing stuff, and you will see me switch to a different screen. Give me just a second. Look at that. So we go to mlhlocal.host/VS Code-download. Takes us to the VS Code website. We've got a few different download options. I've already got it installed, as you can see here. Boom. Right, what was our next slide? Install VS Code and open it. Okay, so let's open VS Code and open the terminal in it as well. So if I switch back to my proper screen, I'm going to type in code and open up VS Code. Now, the slides tell you to use the built-in terminal in VS Code. Also, I always use light themes, so prepare your eyes, please. If you're a dark theme person, let's fire up VS Code here. Cool, so this is VS Code. Now, you can go to terminal. Something just fell off my desk. New terminal. But instead, I'm actually going to put that one on the left and open a new terminal here on the right. Let's close that. Brilliant. What is our next slide? Next slide says, so the terminal, just to explain to the terminal what the terminal is actually, if you've not used it. So the terminal is, I mean, really, it's a very, very old tool, like older than everybody here, right? Like it's 30, 40, 50 years old. The terminal is how you can interact with the computer by writing or rather typing commands rather than clicking on things in the user interface. And the reason you might want to do this is, firstly, it's a lot easier to automate things this way because it's very easy to automate just a written text command. Also, it's, for some things, it's just faster, right? Rather than going to Google, searching for something, clicking on the link, clicking download. Sometimes it's easier to just use like a one-line command like install VS Code. Cool. Great work. Well done. We've installed VS Code. My case already had installed. Now, the next one is the slightly more tricky one and the one that I always see people struggle with. And it took me literally about 4 years before I found a good solution. We're going to install Python. So Python is a very popular general purpose programming language used in loads of places. Like I said, it's a very accessible language to get started with. And Python is particularly popular for data science and machine learning. But it's very, you can use it for loads of different stuff. Like in this case, we're using it for a web app, which is quite different to machine learning. We'll be using Python 3 for this workshop. Python 2 has been deprecated since January 2020. Don't use Python 2 unless you absolutely have to. Let's see, how is the chat doing? A couple of questions. Is Atom fine? Yes, you can use Atom instead of VS Code. You can use brackets. You can use Nano, Vim, VI, Emacs, whatever floats your boat. Just please not Microsoft Word. Exactly. We're actually not doing a huge amount of coding in this event. We'll be focusing more on taking someone else's code, which is the best way to do it, and then deploying that. How do I open the outer terminal, not the inbuilt one? So I am on a Mac. So if you're on a Mac, you can just press Command Space, type in terminal, and this thing will come up called terminal.app. And it might look a tiny bit different to this because I've added some funky colors and things, but it's basically the same rather than using the inbuilt version of VS Code. But you can just go terminal, new terminal, and it will bring one up here as well. More questions. Oop. Python Flask. Yes, we'll be using Flask in Python. Microsoft Word is fine, not for writing code. Will we at least learn how the code for the website works? So I will do a high-level overview of how the code for the website works. If I talk through every single line, we might be here for, let's say, a few weeks. But like I will explain briefly like how each part of the web app hooks together. Why do we need virtual environments while building Python projects? That is a fantastic question, and I'm actually pretty sure I have a slide somewhere. So stay tuned, and I'll get around to that one. Okay, so we said we're using Python 3. First thing to check is if you've got Python installed. Again, and they're telling you to use the VS Code terminal. I'm going to use my normal terminal. Let me do some more screen share stuff. Okay. You'll have to tell me if this is not big enough. I'm willing to bet that that should be big enough for you to see on stream. So I'm just going to type in Python, telling me we're running Python 3.9.1. The bit after the 3 doesn't really matter. The important bit is that it says Python 3 and not Python 2. It could come up and say Python 2. If that's the case, just type in Python 3, and then hopefully that'll trigger Python 3 to come up. If that doesn't work, then you've got to go and download and install Python. Scary stuff. Now, the way to install Python, which is what it's telling us to do here, is firstly, don't do this. If you type in Python on a Windows command line, it will open the Microsoft Store and encourage you to install it that way, in classic Microsoft fashion. In big capital letters, bold red letters, don't do that. Don't install it through the Microsoft Store. You will cry. The best solution is to head to this URL, mlhlocal.host/get-python, because the way you install Python varies significantly from system to system. Give me a second. I'm just moving some of my windows around here. Way too much stuff open. So let's switch back to our main screen. We type in that URL was mlhlocal.host/get-python. It's going to take us to this page to download Python, and then the next slide says, if you're on Windows, download the Windows installer. Walk through this. Just make sure you check Add Python 3 to Path, and then click Install Now. What's this one? Once it's installed, check it in VS Code. These slides, excellent stuff. If you are installing Windows, if you're installing Python on Windows, it's really, really, really important that you do the first step on this slide, which is check that Add Python 3.x, 3.8 or 3.9 to Path. If you don't do that, it is going to hurt you. And if it hurts you, it hurts me because you can't follow the workshop. That makes me sad. Now, I have fortunately got Python already installed. If you're on Mac, you can download it from this website. There's a load of ways to do it. If you don't want to use the website version, I quite like pyenv if you're a little bit more comfortable with the command line. Pyenv is a great way of installing Python and indeed different versions of Python as well. So that's like a stretch project, shall we say. If you feel like you're up to it, install it using pyenv. Otherwise, just download from the website and you will be good to go. Okay, so we've already tested that Python's installed. We know it is. Pip. Now, this has come up right at a great time because I see a few people talking about pip in the chat. Pip is a package installer for Python. So when you want to install packages or dependencies, modules, libraries, whatever you want to call them, you would install it using pip. And that's if the package is to be used specifically with your Python application. So like a package is a code library which provides extra functionality. So let's say you're doing some really complex maths. There's a package called math, should be called maths, which includes a bunch of trigonometric functions, right? Sin, cos, tan, all that stuff. Now with pip, we're going to be using a wrapper called pipenv. It manages a virtual environment. And I know I'm saying a lot of words. Python is great, but gets really complicated really quickly if you're not careful with it. So pipenv is a great way to use a virtual environment, which is an environment that runs locally for a project and doesn't affect your global installation. So you might need version 3 of a package for one of your projects, but version 2 of that package for another project. Virtual environments allow you to kind of separate those dependencies. And if you've got Python installed, you've almost definitely got pip installed. Let's go ahead and check that as well, just for our own sanity. Screen up. So we know that we have Python installed because we can see it coming up. If I type in pip, yeah, it's come up with something here. And in fact, if we do a pip -- version, they're using pip version 20, which belongs to Python 3.9. Now, if pip comes up saying it belongs to Python 2 point something, try a pip 3, and then hopefully that will come up with a Python 3.9 or whatever version of pip you've just installed. Let's see, a couple more questions coming through. Is it a bit like a bundler? Kind of. So with Python, you don't need to compile your code. You don't need to build it. It's interpreted at runtime. So you just type in the code and then it does it immediately. It's a little bit like a bundler in that it's how you would get additional libraries to your application to be able to use them. Exactly. So we use pip for importing packages, a bit like collections. We don't use pip in our actual code. It's a command line tool we would use to install additional packages for our code. Where are you typing pip -- version? So I've got a copy of my terminal open here. I'm using something called iterm2. It's basically exactly the same as the inbuilt terminal with a couple more pretty features and nicer colors, which is a really important bit. Exactly. It's like npm for Python. Nice short description. All right, let's head over to our next slide. Let's keep going, keep the energy high because we've still got loads to do. So far we checked for Python, we learned about pip, we checked pip was installed. Now we're going to move on to Mariadb. Mariadb is the database we'll be using for this project. And we'll use it for local development so we can see how our data moves through the app. And the database is how we can track how many people. Remember how this is a kind of like restaurant favorite kind of app thing. So the database is how we can track how many people have favorited different locations. We're not actually going to implement that feature in this workshop, but the code to make that happen is included in the sample code. So again, if you want a stretch project afterwards, that's what you can do. Yes, are those packages and libraries grabbed from somewhere online? If you do, for example, pip install and then something, it usually comes from there's a certain online site. I think we can just Google like pip. There's a pip registry. Is that what it's called? PyPy, the Python package index. Let's say you got math. They're just here online. So pip automatically hooks up to pypy.org and pulls stuff from there. Cool. So let's go ahead and talk about installing Mariadb. Now, you might have heard of MySQL. Mariadb is very, very similar. Mariadb is an open source relational database. So Mariadb uses a query language. It's a specific language that we can use, not quite a programming language, but similar. And it makes reading and writing tabular data, so that's data in a table, very, very easy. So we're going to set up Mariadb with a relational database. And relational databases are databases that have tables that refer to each other. So in this diagram, which I am definitely screen sharing, you will see we've got some songs and some artists, so that would be two different tables, a song table and an artist table. And then one of the columns in songs is an artist ID. So that will actually reference the ID of someone in the artists table. So that is the relationship. It's a relational database because these tables refer to each other. Now, similar to Python, installing MariaDB also varies from platform to platform. If you're doing it on Windows, you can head to mlh-local.host/mariadb-windows and follow the instructions. On Mac, same link. Now, if you haven't got these slides yet, make sure you head to the little banner going across the bottom of the screen. Check in at hackpack/hackwithrobbie. When you go to that page, it will invite you to check in. Once you've checked in, the link to the exact slides that I'm using are here, the participant slides. So make sure you get those. Thank you to our heroes who are posting the links in the comments. Now, to install it on Mac, we can use Homebrew. Now, I actually don't know if I have MariaDB installed, so you're gonna see me write some actual proper terminal commands here. Homebrew, if you don't have it, and there's a lot of stuff to install. Homebrew is a package manager for Mac. So pip allows you to install packages just for Python. Homebrew allows you to install packages or software for your Mac in general. Now, I know for a fact that I do have Homebrew installed. So I don't need to download it from anywhere, but I do, I think, need to install MariaDB. See, it's that command. My mouse show up if I do the screen share on the actual slides rather than my presenter notes. Yeah, you can see here, Brew install MariaDB. So if I switch over to my terminal, we're going to type in, and you're going to see it at the bottom of my screen here, Brew install MariaDB. Hit enter. Hope for the best. Let's see what's happened here. While we wait for that to do its thing, because updating Homebrew takes absolutely ages. If you didn't see it earlier, got a lovely little AWS cloud. It's got AWS printed on both sides. How cool is that? What other questions have we got coming through in the chat? Can we use MySQL? Actually, a fun bit of history. I think MariaDB is an open source fork of MySQL. So if you have MySQL installed, you can use that. We're just using MariaDB because I think it's slightly easier to install. Is that ZSH plus power level 10K? You are damn right it is. I absolutely love power level 10K. First thing I do with any new development environment I've got, install iTerm 2 if it's Mac, install ZSH or own my ZSH, and then install power level 10K. Oh, so many good features. I absolutely love it. Absolutely love it. More questions coming through. How to install MariaDB in Windows. Access these, go to the slides, and there's a link in there. Is that AWS Cloud part of the swag? I wish it was. You are really right. It's very, very cute. And it's also squishy. I don't know if you can hear it. But it's got this funny little like air squeezing out sound. It's cute. It's a bit like a stress ball, but more like a stress cloud. I got this because my proper job is I work for AWS. So this just turned up in the post one day in the way that Swag does, which is awesome. How's MariaDB doing? Installing a bunch of dependencies for MariaDB. You know what's always kind of surprised me with Homebrew is the vocabulary. So we've got, we pour stuff. There's a cellar. Somewhere you've got like your bottles. Like I don't understand what all these words mean. It's this weird, weird way of working. What questions have we got coming through here? Oh, good question. Do we need the client or the server? You need the server. The client is what would allow you to interact with a server. But if you don't have a server, then there's nothing to interact with. So make sure you install the server. Can I use MariaDB in WSL, Windows Subsystem for Linux? That's a great question. You should find out the answer for homework, which means that I'm actually not too sure, to be honest. You can certainly try, and if that doesn't work, just do it on Windows natively. Now, I know there's a link in the slides to the Mac version of MariaDB. There's probably like a Linux version or an Ubuntu version or something if you want to use that as well. Any more? Nothing else. It's an important question. You know what I'm going to do? Have a sip of water. Hydrate or dihydrate? We actually used to live by that motto before the apocalypse, when we actually went to hackathons in person. You know, you're always kind of running around, you're talking to lots of people, you very easily get a bit of a hoarse voice. So we always make sure you've got plenty of water, hence the phrase hydrate or dihydrate. Some more good questions. Should I check UTF-8 as default server char set? Why not? Go for it. Half of software development and stuff is trying things out, and if it breaks, working out how to fix it. What is my ZSH setup? It's pretty vanilla compared, you know, mostly the normal power level 10K one. I have a couple of extensions in it so that it almost always shows my Python version, my Node.js version. On my work machine, I have it always show my Terraform version and workspace. I'm slowly learning how to make it better and better. I'm just going to be a, let me go ahead and install those, put those Mariadb links in the chat for those of you that still haven't seen them. So we've got MLH local.host/Mariadb Windows. And then for Mac, I don't actually understand what these slides are saying here. Do you? Like, why is there a link to a Mac download and then it also tells you to install it with Homebrew? Who knows? I'll put a link to Homebrew, MLH, HTTP, // because it doesn't use HTTPS, these short links. That's a weird one, isn't it? Get Homebrew. A couple more interesting questions. When are we getting the desk tour promised from LHD Build? As soon as I tidy my desk. Power level 10K makes terminal loading kind of slow. Yeah, it's definitely slower than like normal terminal. Actually, power level 10K came with a bunch of speed upgrades compared to power level 9K, if you ever used that. Like it will basically load in the terminal before it loads in all the plugins, so you can actually start typing commands pretty quickly. But it's certainly not as snappy as a default, vanilla terminal setup. It's a trade-off, right? You want more functionality and more helpers and things. It's not quite as snappy as you like. So works flawlessly on my Ryzen 5 5500U and NVIDIA setup. What graphics card are you running? NVIDIA what? Because if it's like an NVIDIA 230, not like a 2030 or anything, a 230, I'm going to be interested. I'm looking at my old desktop PC at the minute. And I built it in 2015, and it's got I upgraded it a little bit, so it's got a GTX 1060 in it. The processor is an old AMD FX 8350, like pre-Ryzen. It was the first 8-core CPU, and they actually got in trouble for calling it 8 cores because it's not really 8 cores. And boy, that thing runs hot, and it is a power hog. But I don't use it for anything these days. I've got my MacBook Pro for my proper work, and indeed I've got an Xbox Series X for my games these days. Got a 2060, 1650, both very, very good, good graphics cards. Yeah, so I've seen a couple of people here say the participant slides are wrong. I will make a note of that for our end, get whoever manages these slides to update them. If you install Mariadb, you're probably going to have more success because then you're following what I'm actually doing here in the presentation. When I open VS Code, how do I open an editor? Just make a new file, file new. 2070 Max Q, which burns up a laptop. Yeah, I could imagine. Like like I said, I work for AWS, right? These people, and I have the 16-inch MacBook Pro. It's a pretty powerful machine, right? But Amazon or AWS installs a lot of corporate software on it, like low-level stuff for monitoring and security and things. It basically means it's always sitting there with the fans at 100%, always running hot. So I've been looking at the iPad Pro, the 12.9 one with the new M1 chip, and the Magic Keyboard and trackpad Obviously not as like a main development machine, but like if I'm just sitting on the sofa doing emails, I don't need this massive bulky laptop that runs really hot. I just want something a bit more casual. So do I have an M1? No, I'm still running. My personal MacBook Pro is like the 6-core something or other Intel one from a couple of years ago. My work one is the base 16-inch MacBook Pro. I don't have an M1 machine. I bought my mum the M1 iMac, and I'm very jealous. That's why I might buy myself the... I was going to hold out for a 16-inch like M1 or M series MacBook Pro, which should come later this year. But I was seriously tempted to get an M1 iPad Pro instead. So who knows? More questions. Lots of stuff going on here. What's an M1? I do know the answer. However, you should find out the answer for homework. I do love the AWS Stress Cloud, even when you don't see it on camera. I've got one hand here just like squeezing away. It's just good. Like, I'm a terrible fidgeter. People are probably glad that I'm working from home now. So it means I can just like mess around and play with stuff here. Actually, let's go back and check how our Homebrew's done. It probably finished like 5 minutes ago. Oh my God, it's still going. I can't believe it. Wow. Can you imagine if I'd done the entire thing and I was like, install VS Code, install Python, install pip, install Mac OS, install Windows from fresh, right? I'd be here a while. Let's leave that running in the background. Now, someone asked a question. Where was it? There's a really good one that I saw. Oh, please show the Windows slide. That is the Windows slide. Go to the link, and then there's a link there to the Windows install instructions. What I can do is paste those in the chat. I generally find stuff easier to install on Mac because the terminal is like Unix-based, so it all works with Linux stuff, which is just generally a bit more common for developers. However, I completely appreciate that people use Windows machines, and I did for years and years until I was finally in a position to actually buy a Mac, because for Macs, from what I can tell, you basically pay twice the price for the same specs. But yeah, I like using my Mac, but on Windows, you can definitely do this stuff as well. Sometimes it's just a couple more hoops to jump through. What's a computer? Man, that's a great question. You should find out the answer for homework. 8 gig or 16 gig of RAM for uni studying? 32. You definitely don't need 32 gig of RAM. My personal MacBook Pro has 32. My work one has 16. I don't really notice a difference. I used to have the old 12-inch MacBook. I don't know if anyone remembers that. It was the first MacBook that Apple brought out with USB-C in 2015. That thing was severely underpowered. I mean, it was really, really thin, right? And it never ran. It never had fans or anything, so it's fanless. But it was not a powerful machine. More good questions. Am I lagging? It's very possible. Like I said, my internet here is 5G based, so it's basically like being on a personal hotspot all the time. So apologies for that. I want the stress cloud. Hit me up on LinkedIn. I'll refer you to work at AWS. I get a referral bonus. You get a stress cloud. Everybody wins. This is a good point, actually. I use Chocolatey in Windows. Yeah, so I haven't done much package management on Windows just because I don't do much dev on it. But you make a really good point. Chocolatey is a good way to install stuff. It's a little bit like Homebrew, really. So yeah, definitely worth giving that one a go if you want to try something new. What's my LinkedIn? You know what? I'm going to post my LinkedIn in the chat. I'm going to post my personal website first. And then my LinkedIn. I don't even know if my LinkedIn is linked on my website. Probably should be. That's my LinkedIn. I don't respond to your request immediately. I'm sorry, I get a lot of requests, so I tend to sit down and do it in batches. And that is such a humble brag right there. Is that posted? I think it's posted. Have you used Linux on Mac? So I guess you mean like a Linux virtual machine or something. I don't know if I have used a Linux VM. Like, Mac is Unix under the hood, right? So it's very similar to kind of Linux anyway. So yeah, kind of, I guess, is the answer to that question. Are you going to watch the England versus Germany Euro game tomorrow? So I never used to be into football, and I'm still not into football. And by football, to certain people, that means soccer. The correct word is football. We invented it. Now, I never used to be into football until I got to uni, and my housemates always played FIFA, like FIFA 14 on the Xbox 360. And so I learned basically how to play football and how the rules work from FIFA. Took me about years and years to get to the point where I could beat the AI on semi-professional. And I still don't really care about football. So I'm actually going to cinema. I'm going to watch Fast and Furious 9 tomorrow evening rather than watch the game. So I hope for the cinema I'll be quiet. Everyone's watching the football. Windows has an official package manager now called Winget. I've heard of this, you know. It's like Microsoft actually doing a pretty good job of upping their game because they know that installing stuff through MSI files is a pain. I'd love to work at AWS, but I doubt they'll be interested in hiring a first-year computer science and engineering student who's learning basic programming. Well, we have internships for exactly that kind of thing. Everybody got to start somewhere. My first proper job was before I worked at AWS. I was a PHP developer, and I didn't know anything about PHP when I started, and they still hired me. So more questions coming through. The passive aggressiveness. Well, I'm saying nothing apart from you're wrong. Right, has this downloaded yet? Please, is my terminal done? Yes. God, that took 13 minutes. Can you believe that? Madness. It's been so long. My beard's grown. Right, that's installed. I guess I've got to go back to my slides and figure out the next step. So we've installed MariaDB. For Mac users, once you have MySQL installed, MariaDB, we need to add an alias so we can use it from the command line. Now, I'm actually not convinced that this is correct. I think if I just run that command, if I just do like MySQL, it's there. I guess MariaDB, is that even a thing? That's there as well. So we don't even need to do that step. We're just going to skip it. Now, here's an interesting concept for you, actually. So I'm seeing a lot of people having pain in the chat trying to install stuff, and I totally feel your pain, right? Trying to install things is a nightmare because, did I install it once 3 years ago for that workshop? Which version was it? Did I install it differently with Homebrew, with Chocolatey, directly? Who knows? So a company I've been working with actually has what they call D for D, desktop for developers. So rather than running the code on their local machine, I actually have a VM in the cloud using Amazon Workspaces, which is basically an AWS EC2 instance. And it means that you can easily reset it, start fresh, without kind of losing your data because your data will be stored elsewhere. And then you just configure it in the way you need. Yeah. Right, let's go back. Keep going through our slides. So skipping that, running MariaDB. Let's get MariaDB up and running. That is the kind of stuff I like to see, some actual work. 53 minutes into the stream. So some context here, actually. MariaDB is a fork. So that's like a copy of the source code with additional stuff built onto it. So MariaDB is a fork of MySQL. And my notes here says it was created when a bunch of MySQL contributors got scared because Oracle bought MySQL. So the commands are all still named MySQL, even though it's MariaDB, which is a bit of a weird one. What's it saying here? If you're on Windows, you can also start the MySQL command line client from the start menu. Okay, so let's actually run these commands. I'm on Mac, so I'm going to run the Mac one. That's the Mac command. If you see me looking up, it's got another monitor up there with the slides on. So we're going to sudo mysql-u root-p. Hit enter when password prompt pops up, is what the notes say. We're off to a good start. What's the password? Who knows what the password is? Is it password? Or am I locked out of my own database? Let's use our brains here. Which MySQL is it? Is it the one from MariaDB? Let's do sudo mariadb -u root -p. Oops. Maybe I shouldn't have skipped the step with the... Well, now I'm stumped. Why is it asking for... Why is it telling me the password is wrong? When, in theory, there should be no password. Let's just try that alias step. So that's... So if I do which MySQL, it comes up with that. Okay. Let's just do alias MySQL equals /user local MySQL bin MySQL. Again, I'm reading off the slides here. I think I have a password somewhere from when I must have done something like this ages ago. You know what? We're going to go to a good old friend Google. Reset MySQL root password. Mac, please. Is exactly like you're saying, right? There is no default password. There shouldn't be. I think I've just managed to mess it up somehow. Applying to Durham Uni CompTIA this October. Yes, do it. I actually applied to maths at Durham University. Went in, did maths for 3 months, realized it wasn't for me. Switched to maths in CompTIA, and now I work at AWS, so it worked for me. Do you think the inventor of MySQL was feeling selfish when he coined the name? It's like MySQL. I mean, the only way it could have been worse if, let's say, I'd invented it. If I typed in, like, if I called it like Robbie SQL, you know, that'd be really bad. Now let's take a look at these. The best results are always in gists and Stack Overflow. Oh my God! Go to System Preferences, MySQL, and stop MySQL. Let's try it. Do you see MySQL here? I don't see it. Okay, that's not there. Try running these commands instead. So what are they doing? They start it and then stop it. Hold on a minute. When we're doing sudo, do you think that's asking for my Mac password rather than the MySQL password? I think it is, you know. You know when, like, it's one of those days, it's just a bit long. Everyone, thank you for your support, everybody, in this difficult time. And I'm here like, what is the password? And it's my password. And that is a bit misleading. We're getting password from the sudo command. Once I pass that stage, then MariaDB or MySQL is saying enter password. All right. Okay. Let's quietly ignore that. Let's go back and figure out what on earth we're doing with our slides. So my MariaDB is installed. Now, this one says use MySQL. I used MariaDB. Apparently they're one and the same, so just, you know, toss a coin and decide which one you want to use. I think that's the message we've got here. All right, we're going to create a database. See, this is good stuff. We create a database with a create database. What an imaginative name. Command. You can then run show databases, you know, shell to see the current databases available. So we're going to create a database called places. So on those slides, let's head back to my terminal. So I'm here in MySQL. So before we run a create database, I'm actually going to run show databases. And you'll see there's 5 databases currently installed. There's information schema, Laravel. I've definitely messed around with MySQL on my machine before. Laravel is what I used to use in that first proper job I mentioned where I didn't know PHP. Laravel is a PHP framework. So there's 5 databases currently. The point is we're going to create a database. I'm going to call it places. So I'm just typing in create database places. Make sure we put a semicolon at the end of the SQL query. Okay, 1 row affected. So if I now do show databases, pro tip, if you hit the up arrow through your terminal, you can cycle through your previous commands. Show databases, and we've got 6 rows now. There's my places database. Excellent. Let's go back to the slides. What have we got here? Create a user. So we're going to list users with the command select user from mysql.user and then create user to create a username and password. So let's copy that off the slide as well. So the first query is select. I'm really lazy. I never use capital letters for SQL, even though everyone tells me I should. From mysql.user. The three users is mysql.session, mysql.sys, and root. Root's who we're currently logged in as. Once we eventually got there and realized the password was, let's not talk about it. We're going to create a new user. So I'm reading off the slide. Create user, new user at localhost, identified by, wow. I'm going to use a super secure password 1. To select users now. We've got this new user. Interesting name for a user, but let's do it. A couple of questions here. Linux terminal has a better interface than macOS terminal. I mean, when you say a Linux terminal, that's so broad. Are you using an Ubuntu terminal? Are you using an Amazon Linux 2 terminal? Are you using a Kali terminal? Are you using Alpine? Right? Who knows? Never had so much fun in these sessions. I think it's been a good one, actually. I mean, if you're having fun because you're watching me struggle, then more power to you, I guess. Can't see terminal. I need a Stream Deck, like physical buttons I can press to switch between them. Right, here's my terminal. Let me show you what I just did. So we're in Mariadb, MySQL, whatever it is. We did a show databases, and then we created a database called places. Show databases again, and now you can see the places table. And then we did a select user from mysql.user. You can see there's 3 users currently there. I created a user called new user. Localhost means just like on my machine, identified by. So this is the password I gave them, password 1. Now I need you to remember that for me because I'm definitely going to forget that password. And then we do a select user from mysql.user, and we can see the new user that we have just created. Okay. Still installing MySQL. I mean, yeah, it took like 15 minutes of mine as well, so don't stress out if it takes a while. You can get the participant slides and follow along with those if you are not quite keeping up. Sunderby, thank you so much. Please don't hack my my database. Right, let's switch back to our slides, follow the instructions. We're on slide, slide 41 of 127. I'm going to have to keep powering through. Right, create the MySQL user. We've done that. We've got to give them some permissions to do stuff. So if we say grant all privileges on places.star, that basically says if I log in as the new user, the user called new user, then we basically want to have permissions to actually do stuff on the places database. So if I go back to my terminal, I'm typing in grant all privileges on places.star to new user at localhost. Boom. And then they want us to exit as well. So let's exit out. Bye. Isn't that sweet? Bye-bye. Let's keep going with these slides. Oh, generating our MySQL URL for dev development. So from here, we use our username and password and database name to create a MySQL URL. The URL is formatted like so. So there's this weird, massive long thing at the beginning, MySQL plus PyMySQL. And then it's like a colon and 2 slashes, like any normal URL. So we've got username, colon password, at host, so localhost, colon port, slash the database name. Now, using this above format, we're going to create our own database URL and save it somewhere safe. I might actually have to type that on my computer because I don't know if I trust you folks in Twitch chat to hang on to that for me. So all we've got to do basically is substitute our username and password in here. So let me just start typing. So we've got MySQL plus PyMySQL, colon slash slash, and then what was our user called? New user, colon password 1 at localhost, colon 3306 / places. What a whopper of a URL. Back to the slides. Let's keep going. let's recap. So far, we've learned about MySQL and Mariadb. Still not clear on what the difference is, but I think Mariadb is a fork of MySQL. Because it's a fork, it still uses the old MySQL name everywhere. Weird one. So that's a relational database, so tables can reference other tables. We installed Mariadb, we created a database, and we created a user. And we also gave that user permissions for the database we made. So now we're going to set up AWS so we can deploy our app to production. Boom, getting started with AWS. Let's keep going. What's the messages here in the chat? We didn't set a username. So we created a user called new_user. That was from this command. I realize now I probably should have put something more sensible like Robbie as the user, but hey, we've got new user. Unable to grant privileges, can't find any matching row in the user table. Make sure you've created the user and make sure you've not got a typo anywhere and you're using the right username somewhere. Okay, keep going, keep going, keep going. Boom, create an AWS account. That's what we like to see. New users get 12 months of free tier access, but you do need a credit card to complete registration. If you have a student account, like AWS Educate, you actually can't make an Iam user, which is the step we're going to do in a minute. So I encourage you to make a new account, put your card details in, and then just follow the instructions in this on what you can actually deploy, and then you'll stick within the free tier, and then you should be fine. And then once you're done, make sure you shut down, and we'll terminate it. And I'll show you how to do that so you don't get charged at the end of it. So to create an AWS account, we're going to go MLH local.host/AWS sign up. Let's do that over in my browser. We are just going to quietly delete this page about resetting the MySQL password. What is it? MLH local.host/AWS-sign up. And good question. Should we delete the account afterwards or keep it around? So you can keep the account around. If you want the 12-month free tier, that lasts for the duration of the account. So you would need to make a new account after 12 months if you want to keep using free stuff. Okay, so I just posted a link. If you head to that link, you can sign up for an account. Now, regular viewers who have seen me fumble in the past with my burner email address will be excited to know that I now have a proper Major League Hacking email address. It's only taken me 2 and a bit years of working for MLH, and I've now finally got one. Let's just put a plus in here as well. We'll call this INIT AWS full stack, AWS localhost. There we go. I'm going to just quickly slide this off onto a different screen. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for praising me for getting the MLH email address. It's taken me a long time. It's the longest email address in the world, but I will take it. Right, I'm sliding this onto a different screen so I can create a password and you lot don't have to see it. So you've got a lovely view now of my desktop. Oh, apparently I've already got a burner AWS account. Interesting. Well, I'm going to flex my MLH email and make a new account anyway. Boom. So we've got that one there. Let's make sure I save that password somewhere sensible. Like my humming, my whistling. Okay, and as you make an account, you also have to create an account name. So we've got to go, what should we call it? MLH, AWS, localhost, Robbie. Continue, step 1 of 5. God, this is a long process. I plan to use this, let's go for personal. I think I'm going to have to pull this off screen while I step through the sign-up process because no one wants to, or rather, I shouldn't share my name and phone number. The good news is I do feel that I can enter MLH's address. This definitely feels familiar, and I definitely remember setting up an AWS account last time for one of these challenges. Right, time to put in my card number. This is the one that I absolutely must not share on stream. When does my card expire? Right, you'll just see me typing in my card number, my own billing address, all that good stuff. God, verify my identity with a phone number. Now, the thing is, because I work for AWS, it's like my real job, the one that actually is, what I'm supposed to be doing day to day. We basically get unlimited AWS accounts to do whatever we want with, which is absolutely awesome, right? And you can fire up some crazy, beefy, expensive stuff. So, that's great. But obviously, I can't use that for MLH stuff. I might get in a bit of trouble there. All right, it's just sent me a verification code. I'll wait for that code to come through on my phone. Let's see how we're doing here with Twitch chat. Can you even remember the email address? It's so long. All my email addresses have been long. My university one was like Robert, which is my official legal name, which I never use, .m, which is my first middle name initial, .Jacob -Whitworth @durham.ac.uk. My MLH one is robbie.jacob.whitworth @majorleaguehacking.com. Everything else I have, my personal stuff is a bit shorter. I am now sharing a non-burner email account on stream. Yes, but it's a work email account. So if it gets nuked, it's really like MLH's problem rather than mine. We know your name. Yes, you know my name. And I'm posted my LinkedIn in the chat, right? Like, that's got way more than my name in it. It's got my university and all my work history. Are we supposed to add credit card details too? Unfortunately, you do, in fact, need to enter card details when you register for an AWS account, partly so they can bill you, also partly, frankly, for like verification purposes, because otherwise you just get bots signing up for AWS, which is no good. Exactly. You shouldn't be charged. There will be like a $1 test transaction, but the way these works, and I could go on a massive tangent talking about how card transactions work, is it's just a temporary hold on your card, so you won't actually be charged it. You might see it on your statement, but you've just got to like wait a few days and it will drop off. A couple more points. Exactly, it verifies charges a small amount, and then that small amount will drop off your card, so you won't actually get charged that. It will disappear off your statement after a few days. Don't I get xx@mlh.io? Yes, I have an @mlh.io email address, but MLH now uses the @majorleaguehacking.com email addresses. MLH.io ones have, they often end up in people's spam, which is just how it is. So we use the majorleaguehacking.com ones instead. Right, I think I'm good to bring this back on screen. Boom. I'm going to go for the free support plan because why would I pay for support when really that's just paying me for support? Thank you for signing up to AWS. We're now activating the account. This can take a few minutes. Let's see how we get on if we just go to the console. Slow Flash 22. It looks like, I might be misreading because it's hard to read on Twitch chat, but it looks like you've got a space before your asterisk, so events dot, then you've got a space. Make sure you don't have a space there. And make sure you've got a semicolon at the end of the line as well. Right, we're going to sign in as the root user. Actually, I've got some slides I should probably talk about here before jumping straight into it. I will sign in with those root credentials. Okay, then I will talk about what it means to actually sign in as a root user. Oh, these are brutal, these captures. I think it's water time. What do you think? Well, you can't stop me, so I'm going to drink water anyway. Right, we are into the AWS console. This means probably need to set up an Iam user because you should never do stuff just as the root user. Excuse me. So let's go ahead and create an Iam user. Now, Iam stands for Identity and Access Management. It's kind of the way that you create users. So I might have, all the employees of my company have a separate Iam user to access the AWS account. So an Iam user is an entity that you create in AWS to represent the person or application that uses that Iam user to interact with AWS. So a user consists of a name and credentials, and an Iam user with administrative permissions is not the same as the root user. So when you make an AWS account, you are creating a root user at that point. A little bit like with what we just did with MySQL, but you should never use that root user in practice because the permissions you have are like super god tier. You don't want to be using that when you're just doing normal AWS stuff. You should always work on, what's the phrase? Least privileges. Only give someone the minimum amount of permissions they need to do what they need to do. So to create an Iam user, that's exactly what I just said, right? We're given, we log in as the root user, which has complete access to all services and accounts, resources in the account. So we just log in with the email and password that we use to log in. The best practice is that we don't want to use the root account for day-to-day tasks because it has too much power. So to avoid mistakes like accidentally deleting something, you should be using user accounts that have more limited access. It's a bit like the guest account on your laptop if you have one, which can't install or remove software, for example. So we recommend that you create individual users for anyone who needs access to your AWS account. And by creating individual Iam users for people accessing your account, you can give each Iam user a unique set of security credentials, which is a bit like a username and password. Now, what you should do is securely lock away the root user credentials, which is what I did. I put them in my 1Password, my password manager, and only use them to perform very few like account and service management tasks where you absolutely need the root access. So to create an Iam user, we're going to head to Iam, the Iam service. And once we're in that service, we're going to go ahead, click on users, click add user. I'll actually do it in a second. And then we'll enter a user name. And we'll give them programmatic access so they can access using the command line. And I'll show you that in a bit more detail in a minute. And also management console access so they can log into the console, to the web interface. We can either auto-generate a password or create our own password. Cool. So let's actually do that here in the browser. So here in the AWS console. Now I might want to go to, or I do in fact definitely want to go to Iam. So I'll go to the Iam service. We're going to go to users on the left here. We're going to add a user. Now, I personally quite like to put like the resource type. So I'm actually going to put Iam U just to indicate it's a user. And this time we'll call it Robbie. That's the right way to do it. Now you remember we had to give them programmatic and console access. We'll do an auto-generated password. I am not going to require them to change a new password actually on this occasion. Go to permissions. Now, when we do the permissions, we can just basically skip this bit. We'll add them to a group, but we don't need to do any of this at the minute. So we'll skip through that, go to tags. We don't need to add any tags. Like I said here, tags could be an email address or a job title or department or something like that. We'll review. We've created a user, but we've given them no permissions at the minute. So we will create that user. Okay, I'm going to download this CSV file with the credentials in. I'm going to save it. And then I'm going to actually switch back quickly to the slides just so that to make sure that, like it says here, you need to copy your password, secret access key, and access key ID. So let me just go ahead and grab those. I'm actually going to stick them in my 1Password. I'm just typing this out in my one part. So basically just writing down that access key and secret access key and stuff that AWS produced for us. I know there's a few hoops here we've got to jump through. A lot of how AWS is designed is for like massive enterprises who need this level of control, which is why there's quite a bit of stuff you have to do. But we'll get there, right? We'll work through it, we'll plow through it, and we will get to deploying something. Okay, so I should be good to switch back to here. Boom, quietly hide that password. Hit close. Now we've created this user. So if I go back to my slides now, what we can actually see is we need to create a group so we can add that user to the group. So we're creating an IAM group, and a group is, of course, just a collection of users, literally a group, right? And so you can add permissions to a group. So we're going to create a group that allows that user we made to use the command line interface and Elastic Beanstalk. So we'll go back to groups. We'll click on create new group. We'll give it a name. And then on this screen, we're going to attach policies to the group. Policies are how we set certain sets of permissions. So the user would be allowed to create, modify, and delete Elastic Beanstalk applications if we add the first policy. We'd also allow them to, for Elastic Beanstalk, to update environments on our behalf with the second policy. So we're going to attach those policies and then create the group. So let's go back to here. So we'll go to user groups on the left. Let's see how we're doing here. I just joined. Can someone brief me about what we're doing? Welcome, welcome. We are, oh God, what is that error on the screen? We are working through setting up, basically deploying a full stack web app to AWS, which is really, really awesome. So we've got a front end and a back end. We've got some sample code, and we're not worrying too much about writing code. We're actually focused on deploying that code to AWS. Credit cards, I mean, it can be a debit card, right? Just some piece of plastic with a number on it that you can use to bill. Finally managed to get the management console. Fantastic. You want to create an Iam user by following those slides, and I'm now just about to create a group, assuming I can get past this verification screen. Yeah, debit cards, credit cards. I mean, say credit cards, but I mean, it means a card. Anything works. Even like a Visa gift card if you've got one. Right, let's see why this registration is not working. See if they want more information from us. I think we actually are okay. Is it going to let us in now? Cool. So what were we doing? We were making a group. Go to our user groups. Are you kidding me? 1 second while I quickly check my email. Maybe they sent me something. I've got a welcome to AWS email. Account status. Same again. I think I really don't want to wait 24 hours. I'm hopeful that I can just like get into the console pretty quickly. Because I can get this far, right? But then if I click Iam, and then user groups. Okay, what's the people saying here? Have you verified your payment info? I had that. I had to click verify next to my card info. Let's just do that. I mean, maybe I typed my card number in wrong. It is possible. I'm assuming this isn't going to immediately show all my card details on screen. Ends in 3007. Should be fine. Why did it work earlier but not anymore? That's what I'm trying to figure out. What we can see is that so far I spent $0 on AWS. Give me 2 secs. I'm going to drag this off screen and poke around a bit. Use a technical term to poke around the console. There's like a verify button somewhere. I don't see it. Let's try again. Ah, this looks a bit more reasonable. So it's asking me to like confirm, like actually verify the card thing in the Amex app. I've never seen them make me do it in the app before. I've just seen them send me codes and things. So it's like a $1 purchase, but it doesn't actually charge me anything. I think we're almost back to be able to do stuff. Let's have a look. Success, your payment method was verified. Go to Iam. I think we're almost ready to continue with the slides. What? Why did they show me the same? Well, in the meantime, let's address a few messages here. This user has no permissions. That is actually expected. So if I switch back to the slides here, you'll see what we need to do is create a group and attach the policies to that group. So the user has no permissions when we create them. That is by design. We have to explicitly allow everything we want that user to be able to do. Refresh a few times. Classic. See, it's funny, I work for AWS, but I never actually operate at this level. All the accounts I have are pre-provisioned, or I just, like I say, we never pay for them. They just get unlimited free usage, which is pretty nice. I think if this continues to fail, I will switch over to the old burner account. Spamming refresh and it's not doing anything. Yep, let's do that. I'll try once more here. So I can get this far. I can get to Iam, and as soon as I go to groups, I could probably wait it out, but I don't want to. Right, I'm calling it. We are going to sign out of that account, log back into the old burner one. I'm probably going to end up paying for it, but I'll just make MLH pay for it, so it's not too bad. Awesome stream, exactly. Like, you'd be surprised how many people in AWS use awesome like that, like AWS OME. It's great. EM, a G or a Q? Muses. Oh no, ZBSFSM. Password. Code. It's been suspended. Why has this happened to me? Right, I think I just need to pay. I'm going to go and pay. What an exciting evening you are seeing. I'm loving these puns. The Elastic Beanstalk is flexible. Good stuff, good stuff. Keep the AWS puns going. Right, in the meantime, I'm going to drag this back off screen. Pay, assuming it's not like a horrific bill. This is why, at the end of this workshop, if you stick with me, I will show you how to tear down so you don't have to face this issue. Apparently there are no payments due on my account, so I don't know why the account was disabled. Why has my account been terminated? Maybe it just like got deactivated over time. Okay, I'm going to log back into the MLH account like the proper one I just made. I'm going to try enabling two-factor authentication and see if that convinces them to let me in. Let's see. No, this isn't the most exciting thing in the world. What you are seeing is a man trying his best to get his AWS account to work. I have some AWS t-shirts. I nearly wore one earlier and realized I should probably wear an MLH one, because in the post today I got 3 new MLH t-shirts, which means I now have 12 of these t-shirts. Isn't that amazing? Like with 12, I could get away with never ever wearing any other t-shirts. Like, do your laundry once every week and a half. See you sorted. Okay, trying every trick in the book to get this account to verify faster. I'm getting a bit sick of typing in captchas. You know what though? At least they're not the like the standard, the Google ones, where it's like click on the lampposts or the street signs or whatever. Ugh. You know, half the time I'm just training the neural network for the self-driving cars, like, or Google Maps or whatever. I'm confident. I think it's going to work this time. Now that I've enabled 2FA. Ring AWS up and tell them to verify it. Maybe I should. Although if I just hop in the AWS Slack and say, hey, can someone enable this account? That's probably an abuse of my my position there. 12. I would share them, except how can I easily show this on camera? You see, it's got my name on the back. It's got my surname anyway. It says Jakob. My first ever hackathon I went to, like in-person one as MLH. I didn't have these t-shirts yet because they take a few weeks to produce. So I borrowed someone else's one. It's Ryan Swift. I borrowed Ryan's t-shirt. So on the back it said R Swift, which is pretty cool. Right, can we get into user groups? Come on. Oh, my God. All right, in the meantime, we're going to make it up as we go along, and we're going to try walking through the rest of the slides, see if we can get this to speed up. Quick recap about IAM. IAM stands for Identity and Access Management. So let me flick back a few slides for you. So an IAM user is an entity which you create, usually relates to a person or perhaps a machine, like a computer or something. And the user consists of a name and credentials. So we create an IAM user rather than using the root user that we've just created, because that root user has too much power. Instead, you have an IAM user which has more limited access to tasks we want to do. So we went into console and we created an IAM user. So we gave that a username, we gave them programmatic access so they can run commands from the command line, and then also management console access so they can just access through the web console. Skip the tags, stuff's not important. It will create a secret access key for us, which is a bit like a password, but we use it for programmatic access. Then we're also creating an IAM group. So an IAM group is a collection of IAM users. The groups allow us to assign permissions to different groups of people. For example, you can have a group called admins and give that group the types of permissions that administrators usually need. So we're creating a group for AWS users to join that allows them to use the command line interface with Elastic Beanstalk permissions. So the group is only going to have one user in, but as Sunder B explains nicely, it's a bit like when you use a standard user on Windows instead of the admin. What's the craziest app you've seen hosted on AWS? And when you say crazy, like so much stuff is hosted on AWS. Amazon.com is hosted on AWS. Netflix is hosted on AWS. It's all sorts. Does I am have something to do with who am I? Not quite, but it's a similar concept. So if you are in your terminal, and if you type in who am I, it tells you who you are. I am Robbie, right? I'm logged in as the user Robbie. And then, of course, when you're talking about IAM is an acronym for Identity and Access Management. It's an AWS-specific service. So other cloud providers are available, and they have their own Identity and Access Management equivalents. Is GitHub on AWS? I don't know the answer to that one. Generally don't know. I know that lots of companies aren't public about the fact they're hosted on AWS. Like, let's say you're a big retailer. You don't necessarily want the wider public to know that your big retail website is hosted on Amazon's platform, right? There's a good example. Let's see if my browser's woken up yet. Where is it? Let me actually read this page. Your services may take 24 hours to fully activate. Here's a few things you can do to expedite it. Complete the registration. We've done that. Check your email to see if you received any requests. Let me check again. Now, GitHub must be on Azure. It's owned by Microsoft. So yeah, GitHub is owned by Microsoft, but that acquisition only happened like a couple of years ago. GitHub was around long before it was bought by and owned by Microsoft. So possibly not. Who knows? Oh, I've just got an email saying your account is ready, but I don't know if I believe it. Is that showing up? You see the subject line there? This is hilarious. When Amazon terminates AWS and takes down their competitors too. They use the stones to destroy the stones. All right, let's go back a page, see if it's going to work this time. I still don't believe it's going to work. I think that email is a generic email. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Are we at the point where we can create user groups? I'm still laughing about this. This is really funny. I just watched Infinity War again the other day, so I'm going to watch Endgame in a couple of days to get my Marvel fix. Let's go. Can't you find out from the IP addresses if something runs on AWS? Yes, right? If something is public facing, which we're accessing, then sure. But lots of stuff hosted on AWS is completely like all private networks, right? It's not actually public facing. So you might not necessarily know that AWS is hosting some other company's internal stuff. Movie marathon after the hackathon. Let's do it. All Marvel films and TV shows. I'm actually not watching Loki or any of the new TV ones. I'm a bit old school. I'm still stuck in the movie mindset. But when I find a run out of TV shows to watch, I will pick up the Marvel ones. Here's a great one. Example, Formula One races. Yeah, so I have a bunch of colleagues who work on Formula One, like the Formula One engagement with AWS. And I was, someone on my team just gave a presentation the other day about how they basically generate the live captioning for Formula One. That's all done by AWS. So there's a bunch of cool stuff they're doing there. It's actually really awesome. It's a lot of ML, which is not really my thing, but I think it's awesome that they're able to do stuff that is so publicly visible. I mean, yeah, whenever AWS goes down, right, whenever there's a problem, half the internet goes down. I usually find out about AWS going down, if it happens, in the AWS memes channel on the AWS Slack. It's my go-to for up-to-date news. All right, let's do some stuff. We are running out of time, and I want to make sure we actually get this set up. What are we doing? We're making a group, so we'll call it IAM Robbie group. Yes. Add users. We're going to add that user. Now permissions. We needed to add. If I refer to the slides, we need AWS Elastic Beanstalk. So we need full access. Where's that one? Am I blind? Elastic Beanstalk. There's definitely no full access, right? Maybe they renamed it to administrator access. Let's just try that one. And then the Beanstalk service, which I also don't see. I feel like these slides might be a bit out of date. I'm just putting that out there. Let's just break least privilege and select everything for Elastic Beanstalk. Make sure I've not missed anything. I just search for Beanstalk. Is there anything I've not got? All right, let's select all of those. Create group. Number of policies to be attached exceeds the limit. All right, what do we not need? We probably don't need enhanced health. We probably don't need multi-container Docker. We certainly don't need read-only. I think we don't need SNS. We don't need... Like, what was all these ones? Custom... Let's just try that. Does that work? Okay, so we made a group. We kind of guessed which permissions we needed, and we made it. Am I blind? Thank you, folks, for sticking with me through these challenging times. I know it's been emotionally strenuous trying to get an activated AWS account, which is surprisingly hard given that I work for AWS. But as I said, I can't use my actual AWS work accounts because that would be wrong. But what we can do is we can look at the AWS Stress Cloud and give it a good squeeze. I can feel the stress leaving my body. Let me look at my notes. So we've made the group, we've attached the policies, we've added the user to the group. We did that at the point of creation. I know you can't see the slides, but I've already looked through all of this. Amazing. We're going to get onto some actual, some application stuff. Switch to these slides. Boom, let's recap. We created an AWS account, and it only nearly broke me. We created an Iam user for the AWS account. We created a group with Elastic Beanstalk policies. Still don't know which ones, just a bunch of them. And we added the user we created to that group. So let's build the app. Boom, we're going to get some code. We're going to write some code. We're going to use VS Code. It's all good stuff. I'm going to head to this URL. It's going to tell you to download it as a zip file. That's totally fine. You can do that if you want. I'm going to do it with Git instead. So we'll just go and do a Git clone. Ooh, nice. Yeah, I love Spark. It's really great. I actually had to stop using Spark for a long time. You know, this is how we run out of time in these sessions. But I had to stop using Spark for a while because it didn't support the latest authentication method for Office 365. It just didn't work for like 3 years. The only information I could find about it was some random tweet from someone on Twitter, and Spark replied to it saying, yep, we're working on it. And then like 3 years later, they finally launched it. So now I can actually use my Microsoft emails in it. Probably finally starting to code after 102 minutes. Oh, God, that hurts me. You need a lot of patience for this. I mean, you need a lot of patience for anything, right? Patience is an important skill to develop. What's that phrase? Speed is a virtue. Patience is... No, that's not right. It's something like that. Patience is important, basically. Now, GitHub, I'm assuming lots of people are aware of. If you're not aware of GitHub, it's a code repository owned by Microsoft that allows us to store and share code projects online. It's really good for doing any kind of code collaboration, whether you're doing a group project at university or adding to open source software, because loads of people can collaborate on a repository in a very structured way. Poddy. If I ever launch a podcast, I'll call it Poddy. This is good, but only 70% is good because there's a K instead of a last S. So you got Amazon Web, what? Services? They're pretty good. Pretty good. Right, let's do the project code. Got no time for messing around anymore. I'm straight down to business. We're going to go straight to whatever that URL was. MLH local.host. Can we guess it? / Elastic something? Oh, not /e. Oh God, I don't know what I downloaded there. MLH local.host / AWS starter code. Boom, we got it. Yeah. That's niche. That's good, but it's niche. Right, we're going to do a code. Hit the copy here. Go to our terminal. Do first I'll cd into my dev folder, and then I'm going to do a git clone. If I've already got this cloned locally, I'll cry. No, it's all good. We've cloned it. Let's go into the directory. Localhost, build and deploy AWS starter. We are in the folder. If I do an ls, not an ld, an ls, you'll see all the files. Indeed, here in the VS Code, I can open up that folder. If I go back to dev, localhost, build and deploy an AWS starter, and we will see. Let's save it. Dirty editors. db url.txt. Boom. Why isn't the GitHub in dark mode? Well, I tend not to use dark modes. It's very, very rare. I sometimes use my terminal is like the one exception, because terminals and light themes tend to just break. But like my VS Code's a light theme. Everything is light themes basically. There's no place like localhost. How is your branch shown on your terminal? So this is when we use a power level 10K. I think it's power level 10K thing. Basically, it does a bunch of nice stuff. Like you see, when I had more space in my terminal, it shows you my Python version and Node.js version as well. I do actually have a gist somewhere for it. A gist? I never know. Is it set up your environment? I'm going to dump this in the Twitch chat for those of you who are interested. Just a few things to how I like to install stuff. Get stuff configured. What does my work entail? I mean, I could go on about that for ages. Basically, as a consultant for AWS, which is what I do, I teach and coach other companies on how to use AWS. So there's an element of teaching, and there's also an element of actually delivering. So I will sit down with that customer, that company, and write code for them and help them build stuff on AWS. I'm getting so lost. Let's go back to the slides. I think it's a hydrate time. I think, you know what else I've got here? I'm going to treat myself after this water to my last chocolate digestive biscuit. You know what else I'm going to do? Not that. I'm going to double check that I'm not supposed to finish at 9, because if I am, we're going to have to, it's going to be a squeeze. What day is it today? We've got ages. The next session is not until 7 p.m. Eastern, which is, I don't even know what time that is UK. Midnight? We've got another 3 and a bit hours. Don't you worry. If I go on that long, because we get paid a fixed price for doing these live streams, so like it's kind of in your interest to finish it as soon as possible. But obviously, I want to run a good live stream. But if I'm running it for 5 hours, then my hourly take home is not. There's not much left on from there. Right, we've done the code. We've cloned the code. They tell you to download a zip file. I'm cool, so I cloned it. Your file structure should look something like the one on the right. So if I go back to VS Code and I share my main screen, you will see. Boom, here is all those files. Where did that file go that I used earlier? My URL one. Did it just disappear? I swear I saved it. That is weird. Recent. Who knows? Yeah, we'll just recreate it. I'm glad you're enjoying it. I need to hear that to keep me going after fighting AWS for ages. 1:19 in the morning. That's usually when I get to sleep. And then I wake up. Depends on the day. Today I got up at like 6 because I had stuff to do, but usually I get up about 8:30. Slides. Right, we've got the code. Take a look at the files. I'm going to fly through this. So we've got an example N file. So it's an example of the environment variables we need to run the project locally. We've got application.py, which is where our endpoints live so users can navigate the site. We've got a config.py, which is where our environment variables live. We'll also set up the RDS database. Don't worry, I'll explain that in a bit. And db.py, which sets up the database table and the fields used. How I thought AWS, as an AWS consultant, would make for god-tier clickbait on YouTube. Yes, and I would also definitely get fired if I did that. What else have we got? Yelp.py is endpoint for our Yelp API, takes a city name. Local requirements, packages needed to run the project locally. Requirements, packages for getting the project running on AWS. README is the info, and setup is a setup file that installs dependencies. Let's create an env file. This will hold our environment variables. So it's usually stuff that we wouldn't want the user to see, but would be used by the application, like the database URL we wrote down and lost earlier. So let's make a new file, .env. They're doing a file, new file. I'm actually just going to copy the existing example file, I think. So let's do a copy, and then where is paste gone? Paste? That didn't work. Copy, paste. Right. Boom. We'll get rid of the stuff on the end and just leave it called .env. Once I switch over to VS Code, so you can actually see what I'm doing. Okay, the auth token we're going to skip because we haven't got that far yet. The database URL we are going to have to recreate. Now I'm going to do it from, I'm not going to do it from memory. I've been awake too long for that. We're just going to flick back through these slides all the way until we find it. So it's that thing. Okay, go back to my VS Code. So database URL is MySQL plus pi MySQL // is new user : it's password 1, right? Someone put that in the Twitch chat. I think it was you, Sunderby. At localhost 306/places. Which MySQL do we install? 2.4 M or 435.7 M? I mean, they sound a bit like file sizes to me, to be honest. To which my guess is the big one. So yeah, the second one. All right, we've put in the database URL. Now I've got to flick back forward through all these slides again. Just somewhere around here. So made an env file to .env, add the database URL. Boom, that's what we just did. Thank you, Sunderby. Oh God, Sunderby, thank you. Great work. Okay, so what did we do? We cloned the AWS repo locally. We learned about GitHub. We also set up our environment variables file. Now we're going to install pipenv, apparently, and then do more of an introduction to the files we'll be editing. Right, installing our libraries. We're going to use Python to install those local requirements. So let's head back to our terminal. Yeah, this is recorded by Twitch and YouTube, I think, as well. So if you go onto our Twitch or our YouTube channel, you can find it later. Watch me rambling and suffering deeply that my own employer is not letting me access their service. Right, what's the command we're running? Python -m pip install -r local -requirements.txt. Boom. Oh, no, what's this? Let's just try a pip install without the Python-m. Python-m. Iam, no such file or directory. You know when you plan something, or you think, yeah, I can wing that, and then it all goes horribly, horribly wrong. Right, we're going to make it up as we go along. What is in our local requirements file? Instead, I'm actually going to zoom out a bit here. Tell me if that's too small, but I would quite like to be able to see my Python stuff. Actually, I've had a much better idea. Zoom in again. Then I'm going to just rename that folder. Call it MLH AWS. Then we're going to open that folder in VS Code. You think you can wing it, but it goes horribly wrong. Reminds you of Major League Banking. Is that the stream I did where I literally just turned up and made it up as I went along? Like by that point, I'd done so many of them. It's like, I know what I'm doing here. He says with false confidence. Such a good message. So in the folder, it's better. I can see my Python version. Now we were doing pip stuff. I'm going to do a Python. Just make sure that's in Python 3, is it? Something's horribly broken here. What does it even mean? Pyenv, no such file or directory. Now we're going back to Google. The whole point of using pip3 is to not use this stuff. In fact, I explicitly didn't want to use pyenv. The better version to use is the built-in virtual environment module in Python 3, I think. Oh my god, what is all this? Let's just install pyenv again. Let's do that. Okay. Installation, Homebrew. See if this fixes it. I wonder if it's because when I did what did I install earlier with Brew? Was it Mariadb? I think it was Mariadb. It didn't update Homebrew. Maybe that broke my pyenv. Try using pip3. Yeah, I mean the one I'm using is pip3. It's because I'm using pyenv. It's just busted. Pyenv is supposed to be quite clever, but all right, I'm going to reinstall it. A refund for your broken Python. I wish. Right, let's let that reinstall, and hopefully it'll be relatively painless. I think it's time for another sip of water. So if I do a Python -- version now, it's still dead. How about in a new shell? You were right. Whoever was saying the thing about oh god, what's going on here? Pyenv init no longer sets path. Definitely don't want the old one. Add pyenv executable to path. Enable streams by adding the following to profile. This is my bash profile. Do I have pyenv in here somewhere? Yes. Let's delete all of that and use the new version. Then open a new terminal. Pretty, look at that. I'm considering that a victory. I remember what we're supposed to do. Install the requirements. So I'm just going to create a virtual environment. So I'll go python -m venv env. That's going to create a virtual environment using the venv module, which is slightly nicer than pipenv, which is what this project tells us to use. I think I misspoke earlier. I think I confused my pipenv and pyenv. Source env bin activate. Cool. So now, in theory, we're in that virtual environment. I still feel like my terminal should be printing it somewhere. Oh well. This is the most relatable stream ever. This hurts me immensely, but also I'm really glad that I am not alone here. Yeah, let's ignore all that. Right, now we're going to install those local requirements. So it's the pip install -r local requirements. Right, we're installing those things. So our local requirements are Flask, Python.env, SQL Alchemy, PyMySQL, and requests. And then obviously a bunch of dependencies on those as well. Do we need to do Python-m venv and before pip install? I did because I like to operate in my own virtual environment. So I will say yes. Right, that's installed. What does our next slide say? Is it even worth me showing? Yes. So our next step after installing those dependencies is we're going to run the project. This is 2 hours and 1 minute into the stream. We can actually boot the project up. So when we say we're running Flask locally, that means we're creating a server which is localized to our device. So it's only running on our machine. We can't access it over the internet, which is really good for testing and debugging purposes. Now, Flask is a little bit wacky when you try to run it. You've got to specify the environment variables when you run it. So we're going to do that here on Mac. If you're on Windows, it shows it here how to do it as well. So we're going to run Flask app equals application.py, Flask debug equals 1, and then Python-m Flask run. Oh, I think we might have got a web server booted up. Serving app on port 5000. So if I open this up in my browser, I mean, I know it's like rubbish, but the point is it has served something to us. Our web server is running and we've got it booted, and it's only taken 2 hours. Now, I would say normally it won't take that long, but apparently it does. See, there's some more pro tips from the chat here. What have we got? Oh, those biscuits hobnobs. They're McVitie's digestives. There you go. But I'm going to have the last one. Oh, God, it's all melted. I don't know about you lot, wherever you are, but it's been really hot in London. It's been humid. Like, I went out for dinner today. I went out for lunch, and it was just... You go outside, and it's just thick, damp, hot air. You know, it's not good. It's stale. You can change app.run debug equals true. Where did I go for lunch? I went to a lovely Turkish restaurant called Sofra in Mayfair. Very nice. It was raining. I left the house. I was only in a t-shirt. Immediately regretted not having a coat. But I live on the 3rd floor. I couldn't be bothered to go all the way back up. So, right, our server's running. Let's actually do something with it. What happened? We ran the command, booted our server onto this IP address. Yep, great. We've been to this page. Cool. In Flask, we can use the render template method to change which HTML file we want the app to use. Let's do it. Application.py. Render template. What are we supposed to change it to? Page. If I go back to my browser and reload, look, it's an app. It's using the old MLH logo, but it's an app. It's working almost. What are we doing here? A couple of errors. I installed pipenv for the next command, said it wasn't found. Python 3.7 was not found on your system. Did you install Python 3? This is why I would use pyenv and just ignore pipenv entirely. But I will let other experts in the chat help you out with that. Right, we've got our app up and running. What are we supposed to do with it? It looks a bit blank to me. I feel like there's something missing. Great, we've made our homepage. There's no places. It's not even worth showing you those slides. Okay, APIs. And this is some good beefy stuff. So we're going to hook up to the Yelp API. And an API is an application programming interface. It's basically how you connect two things together. Like you might have, well, Yelp is the example we're using, right? We're going to use Yelp's API. So we say to Yelp, here is a name of a city, give me back a list of places. And so we use the Yelp API to make that request and that connection. Another example is like a weather forecast, right? If we were building a weather forecasting app, such as Major League Forecasting, then we need some API which we can connect to get the weather data. So to access an API, we usually need an API key, which is a bit like a password. It's basically a unique secret code past the API to identify the calling user or application. APIs, it's really important to have API keys if you're building an API because it's how you track and control how the API is being used. To prevent malicious use or abuse of the API. You might even have restrictions on, like, depending on which billing plan a user is on, they can make a certain number of requests, that kind of stuff. So in our project, we're going to use the Yelp API. Yelp is a website where people review restaurants in their area. The API is going to list the seafood places that Yelp knows instead of us having to like manually compile that data ourselves. Getting your Yelp API key. Sign up for a Yelp account. Oh, God. Go to this page and create an app. Let's hope that signing up for an account is not too difficult. And then copy the key. All right, what's that URL? Onto Yelp. We're going to. Do I have a Yelp account? No. We'll sign up, and we'll go Robbie Jacob Whitworth. We'll go rob.jacob.whitworth at majorleaguehacking.com. Password. And slide this one off screen while I get one password to generate a new password for me. Cool. You'll see that I have put a postcode on my my account. That is not my actual postcode. That is in fact the postcode of Buckingham Palace, which is where the Queen lives. Saving the password here. Nice. So we'll click sign up, make an account. Skip all this stuff. App name. Major League. What have we done in the past in the Major League series? We've done Major League. Obviously, Major League Hacking is a company. Then we've done Major League Banking. We've done Major League Forecasting. There's one more that I can't remember. Major League something. Banking, forecasting. That's what we could do. Snacking. That's actually amazing. We might do Major League Snacking. What we can do is head to my GitHub profile where I have put them all on. The Major League series. Dominating. Ah, that was a throwback. So let's go for snacking, especially because it's in the concept. It's in the spirit of, you know, snacking and eating. Pick that, unpick that, do the capture. Oh, God, select the cars on the grainy images. Is that a car? Who knows? What even is that? Please confirm the email for your account. You can do that from a phone. Seconds. Major League Findings also pretty good. Major League Baking, I like that. Major Lip Smacking. That's what happens when you don't hydrate. Should use macOS keyboard shortcuts. Maybe I should. Maybe I should. Let's just go ahead and verify my email on my phone. Apparently I've got to log into Yelp to verify my email. Right, that's verified. Let's create the app again. Don't make me do a captcha. Oh my God. I should get paid for training Google's ML models. Boom, here's my API key. I probably shouldn't have it on stream, but at this point, who even cares? It's not a good attitude. You should not take that approach to security. Right, I've got my API key. What do the slides tell us to do next? The amazing slides. Get the API key. Oh, there's a client ID that I missed out. This whole thing. I remember when I got an email landed in my inbox telling me that Jeff Bezos was no longer going to be CEO of Amazon. He's stepping down and doing other stuff. And in fact, the person who's going to replace him is Andy Jassy, the current CEO of AWS. Now, isn't that interesting? It tells you that AWS is, you know, huge. Right, we've got our API key. I can't see my screen anymore because I put my bottle in the wrong place. What's our next steps for the slides? Got the API key. Oh, we've got to put it in our env file. That's some good stuff. Switch back to that one, grab my API key, go to .env, paste it into Yelp auth token. Boom. All right, what's the next step? Run our project and see what changed. I think I need to reboot the project because we've changed the env. Let's just quit that with Control-C. We'll do it again. Go back to our server. Go back to our seafood app, reload the page. Type of city, London. I feel like it's not working. What is our error? Ugh. What is it even? Why are we getting some wrong JSON back? Did I save the env file? It should autosave in my VS Code. Let's search again. This is London with a capital L. 500. Why are we getting a 500? Oh, I know why we're getting a 500. Just you wait. We need to fix it. This is broken, deliberately broken in the code. So apparently we need to fix the code in the yelp.py file. So if we go to our get places function, we need to fix that. So what do we need to change it to? Change fix me to city. Let's have a look at the code then and figure out what's going on. Yelp.py. Oh, look, help us fix this file. We want to get names for this. Sorry, we want to get events. I'm pretty certain it's like restaurants now. For the city name a user types in. So get businesses. Is it really city? Oh, hang on, there's 3 different bits here. Let's put city in. Let's just fix it all while we're here. I know there's different slides for it. We're going to do all of them. So we're going to put city there. Then for the next one, we need to use that .n file to get the variable for Yelp. So we're doing config. Config is some magic, comes from our, whatever it's called, Python env, whatever it's called, Python.env module. So it's actually going to pull the value from here, the Yelp auth token. So we're going to have to do a config.yelp auth token with location city, limit 5, term seafood, and then request.text. It's probably going to be city, but we can look at that one in a second. In fact, we can look at it now, and we can just cheat and skip ahead a few slides. Businesses, apparently. Oh, I have noticed that it does in fact say it right here. Disregarding the slides someone spent hours on. These slides actually have a lot of history. Like, they go back years and years and years, and it's kind of patchwork. Like, we're now on version 2.2 of these slides, whatever that means. And the actual URL of the the name of the file, the name of the slides in Google Drive is called fixed MLH localhost AWS blah 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 blah. So I don't think anyone feels particularly personally attached to these. I remember trying to run this workshop all those years ago, back when I was still a student in the 18th century. I was trying to run this AWS localhost for my computing society at Durham University, and I remember going through this, and like back then it was a particular headache trying to install all the stuff. Like, I'm reasonably able now to plow through some of the hard technical stuff, but as like a second year university student, you know, it was way over my head. So I sat down with a friend of mine who was like a super tech god. We basically packaged all the installation up into a Docker image so that people could install that instead. What we didn't realize is that installing Docker, certainly at that point, was actually also a massive pain. So we just kind of moved the problem. To step through this activity was just a bit of a nightmare. Yeah. Right, so we fixed the code. Does that mean if I go back to our application, it's going to work now? Look at that! It's come back with some places. We've got Wright Brothers, South Kensington, Wright Brothers, Oystermen, Seafood Bar and Kitchen, The Lobster Pot, and Scott's. That's amazing. That's so cool. Our app works. I think we can deploy it now. If I go back to the slides. Rerun the project. Yeah, we've done that. Run it back. It works. Yep, it does. Amazing. Boom. Deploying to AWS Elastic Beanstalk. Let's go. Let's go. Let's go. Our app looks great, but there's one big problem. No one else can see it. Whoever wrote these slides was like comedy genius. So we need to deploy our project using Elastic Beanstalk. So this is where we're taking the project that we have got running locally on our computer, which no one else can access, and we're going to put it onto Elastic Beanstalk, which is going to make it accessible to the whole world. So Elastic Beanstalk is a service offered by AWS. It automates the process of getting your app onto AWS. So we focus on building the web app, which is basically now done. It's built for us and it's working. And then we deploy it to Elastic Beanstalk. Elastic Beanstalk then takes care of the domain management, auto-scaling the code to manage load, monitoring security, all that good stuff. Now, I am overjoyed to see that we have to install more software. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to do a pip install AWS EBCLI and hope that it just works. Now, the EBCLI is a command line interface that can perform a variety of operations to deploy and manage your Elastic Beanstalk applications and environments. It's basically the tool we use to get our application from our local computer into Elastic Beanstalk, which is somewhere in the cloud. How are we actually doing it? Pip install AWS EBCLI. Let's kill that for now. Pip install AWS EBCLI. Some of these names make me laugh, like Cement, Colorama, Future. Crazy. How's our chat doing? That's brutal. It's code is Jack written all over it. I'm going to screenshot that and send that to her. Amazing. How long should our MySQL root password be? Your MySQL root password, well, if you're doing it properly, like for an actual deployment, like very long and secure. For this, I'm pretty certain it's blank. I don't think there even is a password. Is it still installing? Clearly, I need a faster machine. I remember doing, I was on my desktop PC once, the good old days, and I was doing an npm install to install Node.js packages. And I was doing it on the hard drive in the machine, not the SSD. And wow, that took a long time to do the npm install. A long time, because doing it on a mechanical hard drive is just so slow because loads of tiny files. What is this massive load of red? Can we just ignore it? Building wheel for cryptography. Air it out because upgrade to the latest pip. I think we're going to have to do that in a second. We lost my best message all night. What was the best message all night? The one about Jack's code. That one. The next one. What? The comments and stuff. Not gonna lie, I got an existential crisis once with that. Do you trust the author message? I cloned my own repo. Yeah. Oh, here's a good one. Giving me American results. Is there a possibility that your city, or the name you're typing in, is also an American city? It's a bit of a guess, to be honest, but how's our installation doing? Still going. Why is half this entire workshop installing stuff and then fixing it when it doesn't install? Right, let's mess around in the meantime. Firstly, we're going to hit Command-Shift-D. We're going to open up a second terminal here at the bottom. Then we're going to do our Flask command. What's our terminal loads? Wow, that is an old, wrong terminal. Oh, no. Python -m, nope, source env bin activate. Why is my terminal, like, change style? I guess that's just how it is now. So this is set to limit 5. Let's set the limit to like 50. I want to see if I can find a place that I know. Let's search for Turkish. See if Sofra comes up, the restaurant I went to today. Reload the page. Oh my gosh, look, it's there! It's Sofra, that's where I went. Isn't that good? Here's the details, it's got a phone number. That's so cool. Oh no! Thank you, Adam. Well, as we can relive the experience I just went through. I went into the code. I adjusted the params from limit 5 to 50, and I changed the term to Turkish rather than seafood. And then what happened is I went back to my application, and look what came up. The very restaurant that I dined at today. This is basically true. Yeah, York is I know York. York's just down the road from where I went to university. Beautiful city. It's one of the oldest cities in the UK. It actually comes from the name Jorvik, which is the name given to it by the Vikings when they came over just over 1,000 years ago. Yeah, lots of good history there. I know that partly because, I live nearby, and also because I played Assassin's Creed, God, whatever the new one's called, Valhalla. Code and trivia. All right, how is this done? Is it installed? Still installing. All right, let's flick through some more slides in the meantime while that installs. So we're installing that. To set up Elastic Beanstalk, we have to run EB init. I'm looking forward to that. We have to provide a region. Oh, yeah, so AWS is all broken down into different regions. So you've got like EU West 2 is the London region. EU West 1 is Ireland. US East 1 is Ohio, I think, and so on and so on. Code commit will know. Code commit is like Amazon's version of Git or GitHub. Credentials is going to be the access key and secret access key we made earlier on with the Iam User. Application name is a directory name. Python, we're going to use 3.7 running on Amazon Linux 2. SSH, apparently we plow through it. Environment name, default. And then we don't want spot fleet. Okay, next up, we're going to add a database to the EB instance. So, oh yeah, this is good stuff. So if I were to deploy this application in the cloud, I would have the Flask app on an EC2 instance, like a virtual machine, and then the database, like the MySQL stuff, I would host on RDS, which is specifically just a database service or relational database service. So you don't need to worry about, remember earlier how much of a headache it was to install MariaDB, right? RDS, it removes all of that completely. It's just a database which already exists. I don't care about the operating system or anything. It's just a database somewhere, and it provides a URL I can use to access that database. So we will be deploying our database onto RDS, and then from our EC2 instance, our Flask app, we can reference the database on RDS. So apparently we've got to run some stuff here. We run some commands to deploy with EB deploy, open with EB open, how imaginative. And then there's some more problems which we'll tackle in a second. I'm running out of water here. Is this still installing here? Madness. I wonder if it's failed to install because it failed doing the thing earlier. I'm calling it. I'm going to kill this command. I'm going to upgrade pip. Install upgrade pip. So meta, using pip to upgrade itself. Yeah, so this is exactly what I'm trying to do. How do we get the EB command? EB is Elastic Beanstalk. It's exactly what I'm trying to install. So you remember we did pip install AWS EB CLI. That installs the EB application. What water is it today? I had a tragedy. I ran out of Tesco Ashbeck. I could not get access to it. So I've got some Volvic as a backup. It's just not the same, really. What's this one? Always a good one. I don't think this command will run in Windows since it doesn't have Bash. That is correct. There is instead somewhere a... What am I sharing at the minute? Let me go back to sharing the slides. So many monitors going around. One of these slides early on shows you the equivalent Windows command you need. That one. So on Bash, we just do Flask app equals Flask debug equals, and then the command. On Windows, we do this $env thing, which is just more ugly, but that's what the equivalent command is. How many times? Did you count? Because I certainly didn't. I don't have a clue. Look, it's installed. Install AWS EB CLI. I fixed it by upgrading pip. That's all that like DevOps and development is like, oh, didn't work. Upgrade something. Oh, now it worked. Great. Let's fly forwards again back to where we got to. So we talked about what RDS was. Set up Elastic Beanstalk. What's this first command? EB set env RDS engine equals MySQL, which is here. So let me type that into my terminal. EB set env RDS engine equals MySQL. Very easy. So we're telling so RDS relational database service can be used for all sorts of different database engines, different database types. So we're using MySQL, which is basically the same as MariaDB. We could be using Postgres. We could be using Oracle if you really wanted. SQL Server. Something I'm working on at the minute with proper work is migrating something that runs on SQL Server 2000 into a bit more of a modern version, only SQL Server 2012, which is still nearly a decade old. So run that command to set the... Oh, God, I missed something. I didn't do the init. Did we not do the init? We didn't do the init. We've installed it. Now we do an EB init. Easy peasy. EB init. But choose a region. Right, so the default is option number 3, the US West 2. But I am, in fact, going to go for London. That's where I am. So we go for 16. Access ID. Let me grab that from 1Password. I find that. I can't believe it took us so long to get access to that AWS account earlier. Do you remember that? That was crazy. Boom. Managed to share it. Fantastic. Yes, I'm using Python. We want to use, they say 3.7. I'm using 3.9 locally. Let's meet in the middle with 3.8. Code commit is a no. SSH, yes. Key pair name, go default. No passphrase. Oh no, what is this? Now the good news is I know how to decode this. If I have the AWS CLI installed, which I don't. This is definitely related to that policy problems we had earlier. Let's go back to our console. Here's our group. Permissions. We've attached up to 10 managed policies. Which ones have we not added? Like custom platform PCT role, managed updates, customer role. I don't actually think we need either of those. ECS, we definitely don't need that. This Elastic Container Service, we're not using that. Now, I don't know what the CWL is. Is it going to tell us if I click on it? CloudWatch logs. Pff, who needs that? For the record, logging is very important, but I don't need it on this occasion. Let's attach Beanstalk. What have we not attached? Health contained. Yeah, this is something that always frustrates me. It gives you an error message. You have to have the AWS CLI installed, and you have to be logged in. You have to be authenticated as a user, which has permission to decrypt the error message in order to decrypt the error message. You know what? YOLO. We've been here a long time. Oh. Where's like super administrator? Administrator access. I'm pretty certain that's admin access to everything. The easy way to check that is by looking at the JSON for the policy. Yes, allow every action on every resource. And this completely defeats what we were saying earlier about having Iam users with specific permissions. But, you know, I am confident that we'll now be able to run this command again. EB init. Do you want to continue with code commit? No. SSH, yes. But it made a key pair for us, but we'll try again. Yeah, overwrite it. Go for it. No passphrase. No passphrase. Haha! Hacked the system by giving myself super admin rights. What was the command we ran before that? Set env. This branch does not have a default environment. Either specify an environment or default environment. EB use master. Let's try that. Did I miss a command? Hop back to my slides. We've done that. Yes. The next command is eb create to create an environment. Coolio. eb create. So using Elastic Beanstalk CLI to create an environment. Let's call it. Yep, sounds good. Yep, sounds good. We'll do an application load balancer. Sounds good. Do not need spot fleet requests. 2.0 plus platforms requires service role. We'll attempt to create one for you. Should be able to because I gave it admin rights. Boom. Uploading the zip to S3. I've actually not done this before. This is pretty neat. I've not used Elastic Beanstalk in my day job, believe it or not. So we created an environment. We specified a name for our application. We're deploying into EU West 2, which is the London region. We're running on Python 3.8 on Amazon Linux 2, because why would you use normal Ubuntu when you can brand it with your own company name? We've got a C name, so this domain name will be live very shortly. So now what's it doing? Basically creating loads of stuff for us, like security groups and things like that. It's pretty neat. 2 hours and 38 minutes in. I'm actually impressed as many of you have stuck around as you have. That's awesome to see. And we're now making, so we've made our security groups, making an auto-scaling launch configuration. Auto-scaling is, well, it's what it sounds like. It scales automatically. Basically, you might want to have loads, like, you know what I talked earlier about like a retailer wanting their capacity to scale at a certain time of year because there's lots of demand. That would be auto-scaling. So you would have more and more servers available as you need them. Right, let's go back and look at the slides, because apparently there is some useful stuff in the slides. I like to roast them, but when I ignore them, it goes horribly wrong. So all those we had to do is eb init, which we did, eb create, which we did. It's now still doing that, I think. Then we've got to do the set env RDS engine equals MySQL, then deploy, and then open. Very reasonable. Waiting for EC2 instances to launch. This may take a few minutes. Indeed, it may. Save to Control C. Okay, let's do a Control C. Let's run our set env thing. Oh, it's still creating the environment. We'll have to be patient. What else is going on in the chat? Alternative title: Robbie judges another AWS team as he explores all of their options unwittingly. So now we're waiting for this operation to finish. I don't actually know how to view it. I've never used the EB tool before. Let's have a look. EB, can you just give me a status update? Status launching. So what we can do then is, because we are doing all that on the command line, but you can actually go to it in the console to Elastic Beanstalk. Yeah, so I just got exactly the same error. So I think what's going on here is it's still launching the environment. So when we're doing that set env command, we're trying to set something in that environment, but given that we don't have the environment yet, it's still creating, it's still launching. We can't do anything. So the error saying, where was it? It disappeared. There's a pending operation. It's like, there is a pending operation. It's still creating. So, are you joking? Are we doing all this without screen sharing? Okay, so I ran eb create to create the environment. And then it started creating this environment for us. It's created the application name based on our folder, created the environment name based on the application name, and then it stuck dev on the end of it. Our region is EU West 2, which is the London region. That's what I chose. The platform is Python 3.8 on Amazon Linux 2. And then it started printing the status. It's creating all these tools, security groups, auto-scaling groups, load balancers. Now, you tried to run, Sunder, just as I did, this command. And you can't do it because it's a pending operation. The pending operation is that it's still creating, it's still doing this previous thing. It's still running that, still launching the environment. So when I did an EB status, you'll see here's the environment, here's the region and the name. platform, and the status is launching. Health is gray. So if I do status now, is it still launching? Aha, look at that. Status. Ready? Green. Major League Stacking dev. That's fantastic. What's the next step? EB deploy. Reading from the slides. Oh, wait, hang on. Kill it! Kill it! I didn't run the other one. Nvar ds engine equals MySQL. Environment update is starting. Scones is the correct way to pronounce it. Kill it, kill it. Top 10 things taken out of context. Say that to any techie developer person and they'll know that you're mashing Control-C. Or the real pro tip is that if Control-C isn't working for you, you can do the lesser known Control-D. And that will like seriously hardcore kill it. But that's for emergencies only. Control-Z. Yeah, I wish. That would be great, wouldn't it? Does it work? I don't know. I'm pretty certain it's not an undo. Right, how are we doing? Still updating the environment. Instant deployment completed successfully. Is it done though? Let's see what the slides say. Slides are. Let's just be. Oh, there we go. It's finished now. So we've done the set engine. Now we can do our EB deploy. Upload complete. How light is it? Am I sitting in the dark here because it's got so dark outside now? Let me play with my lights a bit. I go for a bit more yellow. Boost that up a bit. Oh god. Oh jeez. Boost that back down a bit. Bring that towards me. And now I am completely overexposed. That looks all right. Jack says, is this the first time someone's gone 45 minutes over schedule in local hack day history? Maybe. But is it the first time someone's gone 45 minutes over schedule in AWS localhost history? Probably not. You got ripped to shreds earlier, Jack. Let me just find a fantastic comment. Geez, there's so many messages. Oh no, I can't get it. I can only go back to 9:13. You've been saved. Sorry, what's the question? Which one do I use? Which what do I use? Which host do I use? All hosts or local host? I'm going to need a tiny bit more context here because I'm not fully sure what you're referring to. Apologies. Local or all host. Yeah, we're not using the Eventbrite API. We're using a Yelp API. There are some slides somewhere which reference the Eventbrite API, which is what we used to use, but the API doesn't exist anymore. Did you know Robbie has a blahage? Like, Jack is partly responsible for me having a blahage. We did a deploy. All right, let's do it. EB open. This is going to be a big moment of truth. We're almost where we need to be. I'd say we're 85% of the way there. We have something running on elasticbeanstalk.com, but we don't. Yeah, you want localhost for that. Okay, it's deployed, but it's still not working. Why is it not working? Let's go to the slides and get the answers. Nothing is loading. Something is wrong. MLH AWS. We definitely updated our files, right? Homepage HTML. Let's go into the Elastic Beanstalk console and have a poke around. See if we can figure out why. Why application's not loading. Why? Oh, I'm in the wrong region. Whoopsie. London. The best region. Right, here's our application. Health is apparently okay. So the question is, hold on, that's localhost. We'll kill that. 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 Why is this still bringing up the old one? Go to application.py in Visual Studio Code to fix the correct homepage. Thank you, Adam. So our application is working, but it's not quite working. Like, it's loading, which is awesome, but we're still seeing this old thing, and I thought we fixed this. So we've got our render template. We changed that to home page. Like, we already had it working locally, so why does it not work here? Now let's just commit it by code fixes. The most descriptive commit message. I don't know. Maybe we do need to commit changes. I mean, I'm literally just messing at the minute, trying to figure out why why it's not showing up correctly. Let's do another EB deploy. Well, I thought it wasn't tied to Git. That's why I'm surprised. Maybe it is tied to Git. Maybe it's kind of broken because I stopped the deploy halfway through earlier. Who knows? Let's just do another deploy and see what happens here. I'm down to my last little bit of water. I now have no water left. Come on, reload. It's going to work. I believe in it. Oh my gosh, it actually worked. I didn't believe that was going to work. That's amazing. Okay, well, if you got the same error I did, do a git commit. Who knows? That might sort it out. So I think the answer is yes, but who knows? Let's go to our. Actually, let's test if this works. If I type in London, does it work? Doesn't work, and I'm pretty certain that's expected. Back to this problem again. Let's just have a look out of interest what the actual response is. 500, right? The 500, and the actual response is internal server error. What? Oh, I think that's provided by our application. Okay, next steps. We probably need to configure the environment variables, I think, you know. Nothing is loading. Debugging in the browser. Oh, that's what we just did. We looked, we got a 500, yeah. Maybe our API key isn't working. EB console, that's going to open what I just had here. This is EB console. Oh, hold on. If I type in EB console, it opens up the console for AWS. No, yeah, I was thinking about this. So why is it giving a 500, right? 500 doesn't really make sense if it's just a missing API key. Like 500 is like, oh God, something went horribly wrong and I've crashed. Not providing an API key shouldn't cause that to happen. But what I would like to do is look at our code a little bit closer. So we've got this method get businesses. Now we're basically wrapping it. So our front end is not connecting to Yelp directly. Our front end is connecting to our own Flask apps API. Right, you can see that endpoint here. It's /API/places/city. So it's really, if Yelp returns something that doesn't work, i.e. we can't access businesses from this JSON, then this crashes and our app gives a 500. So it's our app's fault rather than Yelp's fault. Here we go. Flick back to these slides. So here you go. The official thing is the Elastic Beanstalk console is a powerful resource in interacting with the app in real time. Who would have thought? Once we're in here, so we need to configure those environment variables. So you remember how earlier we put them in our .env file? That's great for local development, but not so good for remote development, remote, like production, right? You can do it for production, but not with Elastic Beanstalk. So we need to go to, where are we going to find environment variables? Not there. Is it in configuration? So I'm just looking here in the console, got configuration. Wow, that's pretty neat. I'm going to have to go back to the slides. It is in configuration, apparently. Configuration. Software. Jeez, who came up with the wording for this? Software, man. Environment properties. There it is. Right, we'll click edit. Skip past all this stuff. Right, Python path, RDS engine. We've set that, but we have not set whatever the slides tell us to set. Oh, the API key. Right. So Yelp auth token is this one. Now, what you'll notice is that our database is using RDS, and we didn't need to configure all of the other stuff like this URL and username and password and things for MySQL. Elastic Beanstalk handled that all for us, which is actually quite nice. So we set that variable, we'll hit apply. Going to save the changes. It's updating the environment. Let's hit view events just to watch and see what's going. The other slides has outdated docs. You know what? At this point in the evening, I am going to go be generous. Give you my slides when I find them. It's one of those two, but I don't know which one. Awesome. Officially exhausted? Tell me about it, dude. Thanks for following along. Much appreciate it. We're nearly at the end, I think. So have a good night. Let's go to event resources and go down to just to update in the background. I'll go to INIT AWS localhost. See, fixed version 2.2. Anyone with the link can view. Boom. Very nice. That is a good callback. Right, those slides are the exact slides I'm using. It depends when you're talking about when you say before, because there were many, 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 many things that were forked at different stages. This is exactly all right. This is final, I swear. Final report. This one, V2, right? We're nearly at the end, I promise. That's hosted. Did our thing update here? Is that finished doing the update? Refresh. Yeah, update completed successfully. So if I reload this page, round of applause. Round of applause. I'm so pleased that works. Let's take a quick look at the rest of the slides, see if I've missed anything important. I did promise I'll show you how to tear it down. That's the important bit. Let's check our app again. Yeah, we checked it. It works. Good. Don't forget to terminate. Boom. Free tier is great, but only for a limited time. Make sure to terminate your environment. Let's go and do that. So we go back to our console. We're in our environment, specifically actions terminate environment. Enter name of the environment to be terminated. MLH-AWS-dev. Terminate. Boom. I presume that's going to terminate, right? That's going to take a few seconds to terminate. The title says seafood ting. There's now a Turkish ting. That's true. Well, that's pretty easy to fix. That's just going to be in our templates, homepage. Yeah, you would just change it here and here. Or the more lazy way is to do Command-Shift-F and search for seafood. Just find everywhere that it's mentioned. Turkish restaurant in Mayfair, hosted on a seafood site. Nice. Yeah, the Mayfair one, it was a pretty nice restaurant. It was quite intimate, but I enjoyed it. It's only about 20 minutes from my house by the tube, so. Does it stop it or delete it? So it terminates it. So you cannot after it's terminated, you can't like switch it back on. It's permanently off. You would have to deploy a new environment to get it back on. So when it's terminated, it doesn't cost you anything. It's gone. Is it bad that I've only just realized that Iam is short for Isle of Man? 20 minutes. Only 30% traffic and sanity in it. Do you mean in it as in MLH in it? All right, let's finish off the slides. Make sure we hit all the important bits. Boom. Don't forget to terminate. We've done that. Woo, take a breather. Did a lot. Pat yourself on the back. You are damn right we did a lot. What did we do? We set up our Elastic Beanstalk instance, created our environment, modified our environment, and then we terminated it as well. Review your next steps. What did you learn? You learned how to run a full-stack web app locally with Flask, a Python web framework. You learned how to deploy apps to Elastic Beanstalk using the AWS Elastic Beanstalk web console and the Yelp Api. And we learned how to configure our AWS Elastic Beanstalk app with a relational database and environment variables. Now, interestingly, I don't think we actually used the database at any point. Wasn't there something about the database being used to store people's ratings? But we had a database, which I guess is cool. What did you learn? Boom, let's do this quiz. I love doing quizzes because I get to share the answers with you on stream, and it's great. So we're going to go to MLH local.host/quiz. How's the chat doing? How's the chat doing? I did learn how to relate to devs and why I should visit Mayfair. Some AWS too. Yeah, Mayfair is a part of London. It's very nice. Most people have heard of Mayfair because if you play Monopoly, Mayfair is the most expensive property on the board. Quiz equals points. Do you get points for LHD? Oh, fantastic. Even more reason for me to show you answers on stream. We did build and deploy a full stack web app with AWS. Major League Hacking. Posted it. Robbie.yarkoblet-Whitworth at majorleaguehacking.com. Hi, you used to live in Reading, nice. I grew up in the absolute middle of nowhere. So for me, living in central London, like right by St. Paul's and Blackfriars, is absolutely awesome. All right, let's plow through it. If you complete both the quiz and the survey, you'll be entered into a raffle to win an MLH t-shirt. 10 out of 10. I work here. Oh, God. Local host events, I mean, is it just based on this one? Or let's go for an 8. I think it's reasonable. No MLH t-shirts left. I mean, I've got 12 of these. Like, what part of the workshop was the most helpful or interesting? That is a good question. Was any of it helpful and interesting? Sorry, I mean, yes, much of it was helpful and interesting. Learning about how EB, Elastic Beanstalk, I was always taught to avoid acronyms wherever possible because people just don't know what they mean. Learning about how Elastic Beanstalk can deploy the whole app, whole full stack app at once. Did any part of the workshop not work or not make sense? Oh, God. Installation process was a little tedious. I've already opted in many times. Nothing else I'd like to tell you. Click next. How did the quiz go? Where's the results? Where's the results of the quiz? Where's the results? Hang on, did I even do the quiz? I'm so confused. There wasn't even a quiz, was there? We just did the survey. Exactly. Easy pass. Yeah. Do I live in Mayfair? No, I don't quite live in Mayfair. I actually live in the city, like the proper square mile, like real London. So Mayfair's kind of nearby. I'll show you on the map roughly where I am anyway. Watch it now, show my exact GPS location. So you got London. Got the Thames running through London. Mayfair is over here somewhere, is it? Chelsea. Mayfair's here. I live basically about here somewhere. And so here you've got St. Paul's, and you've got Blackfriars Station. The AWS office is here. All sorts of good stuff. Shakespeare's Close there. Your London Eye is here. It's rebranded. It's now the lastminute.com London Eye. Yeah. City of London gang. Yep. All my money goes on rent. That is correct. We all passed because we stayed. That is so wholesome. Let's go back to the slides, see if there's anything else I missed, because, geez, I'm ready for bed. Learning shouldn't stop when the workshop ends. Check your email. Yeah, you can get the slides. If you head to the URL at the bottom, you can check in there, scroll down to the bottom of the page, and get the slides. How's my MLH experience to date? I love working for MLH, actually. It's a really good company to work with because there's so much energy and everyone's so positive. It's really fantastic, and I just like doing, I don't work here full time. I just do like bits of contracting here and there, but it's a ton of fun. Am I working remote? Yes, I joined AWS as a consultant with the promise that this is a travel heavy role, and you'll go from customer site to country to country. And then COVID hit, and I've been stuck in this flat for the past year working remotely. But hey ho, we'll get there. Other things, yeah. Oh, this is so sweet. Thank you so much. This means a lot to me. We are all in together. Yeah. I am, still just like a graduate consultant at AWS. I look at folks who've, like super senior. They know what they're doing and have been top of their career for decades. And they all struggle as well. I saw a dude who's a level 5. So he's like got a good few years of experience. Copy paste something by doing right click copy, right click paste, because he didn't know Control-C and Control-V were shortcuts. Yeah. Is there more Robbie content? Yes, tomorrow evening. Let me check my watch. Tomorrow evening at 7 till 9-ish. I'm doing create a hack to help you travel. Well, that's probably going to have to finish early because I'm going to go to the cinema at 8:45. And then Thursday, I'm doing a unspecified mini event at 7 o'clock. Thank you so much. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Honestly, I learned a lot as well about patience, resilience. Yeah. MLH is one of my many part-time things. If I dump my LinkedIn in the chat again, actually, you can have a good nosy and see everything that I do. I've basically got like 4 jobs-ish, for want of a better word, that I currently do stuff with. I know, I'm kind of confused the cinema's open as well, but apparently it is. So Sean, thank you so much for following along. Really appreciate it. I think it's probably time for me to call it a night because I gotta go to bed. You can hear it in my voice. I'm out of water. I'm out of chocolate digestives. I've got nothing left. So thank you so much, everybody. It has been a pleasure. I hope to see you tomorrow at the Create a Hack to Help You Travel or something, where we don't have to do any slides. We'll just turn up, vibe, chill, and do the classic Robbie way. See you later. Have a good night. Bye-bye.